host of Talking with Famous People, and the man with all of the answers to all of your questions, except the most important ones. Anyway, I thought I'd live stream today and talk a little bit about Becky AuCoin. Mostly because I had the impression, I think it was last night I was streaming, somebody came in talking a certain kind of shit. I thought, I didn't know who it was at the time. I posited a few possibilities like Queen's Gambit or one of those other like weak guys who hates me because I'm not weak. But after the fact, I thought to myself, you know what? That might very well have been Becky, because the person had the name Coin in their name, and they tried to trigger me with shit talking about my dad in a way that suggested, well, it would be consistent with Becky's ways, you know. But again, I don't know for sure if it was Becky or not. There's no way for me to tell definitively one way or the other, you know. Regardless, I thought it was interesting and kind of informative as to the nature of people who are stuck engaging in bad behavior for one reason or another. So, like, what happened originally with Becky was, just give you guys a little bit of backstory. She came to visit and stay with us for a week or Camp TWFP summer camp in Laverne, and we ended up having some conflicts linked to the fact that she was going out to Laverne to cheat on her significant other, and at a certain point I was like, hold on a second, am I really going to be able to just not say anything? I said something, she didn't like it, you know. And then she was also being a very rude house guest, so eventually we kind of came to a head. The problem is, and this is part of the problem with reality in general. Not everybody is very effectively intuitive. So after the problem between me and Becky, there was a real divide in the Talking with Famous People community. A lot of people were siding with her, thinking I had fucked up or did something wrong. And I just had to live with that for quite some time. But, eventually then, one time I made a video mentioning Becky in it, and she didn't like it, I guess. And she emailed, she called me to try to tell me to yell at me and take it down. I'm just like, okay, Becky, no. If you want to call me and politely ask me things, then maybe we can have a conversation. You are not in charge here. She didn't like that. She didn't want to, meet my criteria for deserving any kind of engagement with the idea that maybe I accommodate her. Hi, Jordan from North Wales, UK. Welcome. And so because of that, because she didn't get what she wanted when she was yelling at me on the phone, she got my dad's email address somehow. I don't know how. Perhaps from Kimberly, perhaps some other way. But, and she emailed him threatening to sue him for things I said on my YouTube channel. Of course, my elderly father, hello, you flip I flop, and hello, Musso Weird Con. Of course, that was insane. She had absolutely no standing to sue me regardless, because first of all, if you're going to sue somebody like that, you need to actually be defaming you, whereas everything I say about her is true. And second of all, she's a Canadian national. She needs to sue in California court. And California and the United States in general have much saner laws regarding defamation and such than Canada does. So the thing is, last night somebody came in here, again, had the word coin in the Oh, I'm not worried about it at all, Diamond. I think word coin in her name or their name. I don't know for sure who it was, but regardless, when they came in to talk shit, their strategy was to say that I was disrespectful because after my dad offed himself, Cameron was looking for, is there some way I can help? And I said, well, could you clean up the bloody mess over there? And he did. And so the person came in to try to tell me I was being disrespectful to my dad by having somebody else clean that up or something. The thing is, that obviously has no traction with me because I do feel guilty about various things regarding my dad, but not anything that happened after he was dead. Obviously, why should I be feel guilty about anything that happened after he was dead? At that point, doesn't matter to him. Indians are facing racism in the USA. Is this true? Like Indians from India? I don't think so. Not that I know of. I mean, everybody faces groupism from some people some of the time. So some people may hate me because they see me as just because I'm a YouTuber, for example. They hate YouTubers. Who knows? So, you will encounter irrational people engaged in being angry at a group for no reason because they're idiots, But that's true at any place. Recently, I just went down to Oakhurst to get the rest of her prescription from the CVS down there. And while we were down there, we went to the smoke shop. Like a lot of smoke shops, the smoke shops here in Mariposa and the one in Oakhurst are owned by Indians. The thing is, we really like the one in Oakhurst. That guy's great. He remembered us, even though we haven't been in there in months and months and maybe years, And very helpful, very nice, sociable, friendly. The Indians who run the smoke shop in Mariposa are terrible in contrast. Neither of them represent Indians. They both just represent random people. So I'm smoking a blunt now. Well, I was at that smoke shop for you. Might as well get some blunt paper. It felt like smoking a blunt, It's true that India is known for grape, scamming, yoga, and curry, but mostly the first two. That's the thing, Acacia. There are in the status quo 2 smoke shops in Mariposa, relatively close to each other, both owned by the same people. And they have identical merchandise. It's just one of them is on the main drag where tourists are going to see it and go there. The other one's by the post office where locals are going to see it and go there. This is a smooth smoking blunt, I gotta say. It smokes like a champ. I don't want to open a taco stand, buddy cat. Jeez. So anyway, how do you distinguish between deeply toxic people and people who just fuck up? Well, one way that you know that somebody's deeply toxic, as I believe Becky to be, is that they can't take a loss, right? Sometimes we don't always win every battle we get into. Sometimes it's infuriating to lose to somebody who we feel as though they're full of themselves or they use inappropriate tactics like talking over you or something. But the thing is, for people who are not toxic, they can take the loss. They can acknowledge that they were wrong. They can be held accountable in some way. And they probably don't hold a grudge forever, but maybe. The one near the big mural, that is one smoke shop, correct. Given how the partisan corporate media is so influential, spewing its biased opinions, what do you propose to return to an objective presentation of the facts without impeding on the First Amendment? Well, I propose that we need to demonstrate, model what it looks like to have correct political discourse. We need to remind everybody that good politics is not about people, it's about policy. And that we should be having actual substantive policy discussions about things that might actually be passed as legislation rather than determining whether you're on the right team or not by where you side on a given wedge issue that may not even be subject to any revision. Like people put a lot of weight in what people think about gun control, but the federal government has, I mean, the Supreme Court's already ruled the individual right to own a firearm. There's not a lot of wiggle room there in terms of policy distinctions between what's possible for those who oppose guns and what's possible for those who are in favor of guns. And yet people want to talk about it as though we're an important issue, even though it's not an important issue anymore since the Supreme Court ruling. Trump had great policy, but changed and betrayed his base. I don't think that's the case. Actually, Malice in society. I don't think that Trump ever articulated particularly good policy prescriptions in the first place. But at least in his first term, he attempted to follow through on everything he said he was going to do, whether it was a good idea or not. So I don't think that Trump is particularly duplicitous. He's a lot of horrible things, but not particularly duplicitous. He believes his own lies and stuff. As opposed to Kamala Harris, who didn't believe the truth meant anything. It was just whatever you throw out there is fine. They were both terrible, but in different ways. So we can't control people's discourse. We can't we can't trespass upon First Amendment rights, encroach upon First Amendment rights or something in order to successfully engage politically. But we need somebody who's actually modeling the right thing and bringing passion about dispassionateness. It's hard to win an election, even a primary or anything like that, if you're just an energy vampire who gets up there and says, well, when considering the following proposed entitlement program, we look first to the consequences of means testing. If you have that candidate, he's not going to win over anybody's hearts, right? You do need to win over hearts. But in the absence of an alternative, people go with the status quo. Like, what was the alternative to the COVID narrative that never got out in the world? The alternative to the COVID narrative was let it run its course. But because nobody had an advocacy to replace the existing butt fuckery with, and people just collapsed into alarmism and ill-advised encroachments on their fellow citizens' correct jurisdiction of agency. It's like I can decide for myself whether I want to put on a mask or all those other things, and so can everybody else. And the point is, you have the power to protect yourself from getting sick by staying home, putting on a mask, keeping social distancing, whatever. It doesn't require you to force other people to agree. Certainly, it doesn't help with understanding that we ask questions legitimacy first. So America, we enjoy freedom of assembly. That means the government cannot tell us not to get together in groups for Thanksgiving or something. It's just unconstitutional. But because people prioritized a utilitarian calculus, which said, well, are we going to save lives? And if so, it doesn't matter what we do to save lives. Well, that's why we had this catastrophic disaster. Remember, we might have ended up with a similar kind of situation in terms of lots of people staying home, businesses closed and stuff, but it not be nearly as problematic if it were actually something that each individual decided for themselves. So the thing is, obviously, Trump wasn't a good president. He was a good post-president. And I agree, may he rest in peace. He seems like a good guy. He seems like an honest guy. He was just too weak to be a good president. And regarding the idea, Indian Americans are facing racism because many Indians are part of the Trump administration. That doesn't make any sense at all. Nobody's racist because somebody's part of it. It's just people might be racist, but not for that reason.
Thank you.
Sure, I think you'll find it hits like a champ.
Yeah, it does.
Well, Kurt Decker, I don't think actually that Musk is secretly behind the scenes pulling the strings. Trump's not somebody who who plays second fiddle very easily.
I forgot my dad had this thing today.
Oh my god, Ben, I'm excited. I have Down syndrome.
Hey, Keisha. Here you go.
All right,
So good. It tastes so good.
yeah. Here's Johnny as an example of somebody who probably is racist against Indians, but not because they're part of the Trump administration. You know, idiots are idiots for a variety of reasons in a variety of ways. I don't try to condemn anybody just because they're an idiot in one way or other than another. Like, racists are no worse than partisan ideologues, probably less harmful. If I had to give America a personality type, kind of ESTP-ish, I guess.
Do you mind if you roll me one and I go upstairs and call my dad?
Or just have the rest of this one.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm gonna pull bowls.
Um,
Ali and versus Tyson, both in their prime. I'm gonna go Tyson. I mean, I think Mexico's an ESFJ.
yeah.
I think America is much more ESTP because a lot of times America shows very weak intuition, but yeah, there's this whole do it, get it done, etc. thing. I don't blame anybody for being racist. It's missing the point, right? It's not their fault that they're racist. It's just their chosen form of dumbness. And it's not the case that anytime you oppose immigration, for example, that you're racist. I oppose, not that it affects me directly, but I opposed and continue to oppose European nations providing sanctuary to immigrants from Syria and other places in the Middle East because I think essentially Islam is anathema to a Western free and civil society. We don't want to invite in ideologies that are contrary to civilization. Do I like curry or chicken masala? I like both those things. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't love chicken masala? Everybody loves that. I'm not racist to any degree, Buddy Cat. Some people might be, like, everybody's dumb in some way. That's true. It's not necessarily in terms of race. I am not racist at all. I deal with individuals as individuals. I might be dumb in some ways, like one way in which I'm dumb is sometimes I won't believe in something until I have some experiential, some experience related to it that confirms it for my own particularist subjective knowing. Whereas a lot of times in life, you need to know before you experience. Because, like, I need to know not to drink the nuclear waste before I drink it and it kills me. Eric won an award, Specialized Idiot Awards. That's not a bad idea. The thing is, it's like for somebody who's super toxic, it's almost unavoidably that they have been damaged a lot in childhood, probably abused or neglected or both, you know? And so it's easy to, knowing that, it's easy to kind of feel some sympathy in some sense or to acknowledge that they're not entirely responsible for their toxicity. But it doesn't change the fact that there's only one good response to toxicity. We have to attack it face on with transparency, because the thing is, one thing that toxic people hate is transparency, the light of day. They want secrecy. They want to be able to act behind the scenes. And that's why it pissed Becky off so much that I talked about her online, was because it takes control away from her, and she needs control over what people know if she's going to be engaging in bad behavior, like cheating, for example. Jack the dog, hello. Indians are hardworking people. They contribute a lot to America's prosperity and growth. They are 1% for contributing 6% tax to America. Well, I'm very sorry that they have to pay that much. I will do everything in my power to cut taxes for everyone, regardless of their race or immigration status. Toxicity's roots are abuse, childhood abuse, trauma, neglect. So much of who we end up being is hard printed into us during our formative years. So it's not the case that we can really fix toxic people. All we can do is try to crush them as best we can. To go face forward, attack with the truth. That's the only thing that ever helps. And try to keep them as far away from us as possible, accordingly. Do you think affirmative action is a form of racism? Of course. Of course. There should be no kind of admissions or hiring policy except merit, actual merit. I mean, you could argue that it's important that we have a diverse representation of the population in the police force. You could argue that because I think it's fair to point out that if your whole police force is white men um, who share a common paradigm of America, what America is, that you run some risks of policing not recognizing legitimate differences. What's your message to the young generation who's confused about their futures? I'd be confused about my future as well. Right now is a very uncertain time. It's not clear exactly where the world's going. We're in an unprecedented spot. We're at the front end of technology that finally reached complete digitization, essentially, for all intents and purposes. For every piece of information that can be conveyed, it can be digitized. But they do have the Supreme Court ruled that this was an acceptable hiring thing. It is okay to not have affirmative action for smart people. There are police departments who won't hire you if you have above a certain score on an IQ test. Considered too smart to be a cop. So I think if we're going to have affirmative action in policing, then we should include smart people too. Can't hurt, okay? Cannot hurt to have someone be on the side of too deliberative, even with something like a police force, which is by and large not especially deliberative. I'm neither conservative nor liberal, PK saying. I am what's known as a correctist. I'm correct about every specific policy matter. Sometimes people on that team cheer for me. Sometimes people on that team cheer for me. I'm also not a moderate, okay? I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a moderate. I'm not a libertarian. I'm a correctist. I'm directly and specifically correct on every single policy issue. I don't think, Broccoli Todd, that Sean thought you were actually going to invade Canada. Oh, he did say, how do you figure? I don't want Canada. Seems like a lot of hassle to me. Although, I mean, Canada would benefit from us going up there and changing a few laws, enforcing the U.S. Constitution to protect individuals, to ensure that all the people in the country are playing on a level playing field in terms of property ownership, rights, etc. Carlos Paiva says, I'm kind of a libertarian or classical liberal. I mean, I'm not, though, right? So a good example of that is my take on the EPA and environmental protection. I acknowledge that environmental protection isn't enumerated as one of the federal government's powers, but I would make the argument that because pollution and other forms of environmental degradation don't stay localized, that they go across state lines, that it's appropriately an expansion of the federal government's powers, unlike most. And I also think it's very important that we have fairly strict environmental laws and enforce them fairly strictly. I'm not displeased with California's leading the way in environmental protection stuff, as I am with them in many other ways. So the point is, it may be the case that I'm frequently arguing against wrongnesses voiced by the left around here. But that's not because I'm more libertarian or right-leaning. It's because on those particular matters, people are voicing things that are wrong that I need to correct. I don't typically go out of my way to advocate things that aren't open to dispute at the moment, you know? I don't plan on visiting India, BK's saying. No, I don't like to travel very much, but maybe as president I will. Nobody should say they defend a certain political ideology. You can't go frame down with politics. You have to go case level up. So while it's the case that we ought to be principled in our execution of political power, it's also the case that if I'm behaving as a liberal, conservative, libertarian, classical liberal, anarchist, whatever, then I'm putting the cart before the horse. We always have to evaluate specific policy questions in the specific context of the now under a frame of principlism, but with an engine of pragmatism. So it requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of discretion, a lot of deliberative power, a lot of ability to pull the trigger, understanding what's important, most of all, a lot of clarity about relevance, etc., to be a good politician. The person sitting next to me is not my daughter. This is my hot young wife, Rachel. Congratulations to me? Yes, indeed. Congratulations to me. All hail Eric. Thanks, Prism McPot.
Yeah, thanks, Prism McPot.
I don't really want anybody to hail me, though, because I actually am qualified to hold power. I'm not interested in people saying, hail Eric, or, oh, fearless and glorious leader, please let us create a cult of personality around you. I'm not interested in that at all, you know. She is beautiful. I'm very fortunate. I'm interested in fulfilling my role as a citizen in this citizen democracy, doing my part to right the path of the country somewhat, to remind us all that in a sane world, the most capable, most dispassionate, and genuinely patriotic among us become president. How do you unblock someone in the chat? I don't know. Do not know. Are they trying to dilute the public will to vote for freedom for using fear of prosecution against us? I don't think anybody particularly is scared of being prosecuted. I mean, who do you think's threatening whom with prosecution? All shall throw tomatoes at Eric out of respect when he becomes president. Thanks, Prism McPod. I didn't mean to delegitimize or undervalue your kindness. I understand it for what it is. I just thought I'd segue off of that into a general belief that, you know, we should. The people who are politicians have been politicians for a long time, who you know first started off as a state legislator, then moved to lieutenant governor, then governor, and now running president. I mean, there's no saying for sure that such a person with such a history is a bad candidate, but almost for sure. If your whole career is in politics, then you've got a bit of a problem. In that regard, I think Trump is a good precedent, consistent with a good approach to things. He did not come from politics. Canada has laws that prohibit supporting protesters. I know Canada's got some fucked up laws. I fortunately, I'm not Canadian. I don't have to get too correcty about that. It's not my problem. Has Becky made a return? Well, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that the person who came in last night, who was talking about my dad, I think it was last night, maybe the night before, was talking about my dad, how disrespectful it was of me to ask Cameron to clean up the bloody mess over there. Obviously, the fact there were a couple of factors that made me think afterwards. I didn't think it at the time, but afterwards, after I was done streaming, it occurred to me like, oh, I wonder if that was Becky. Number one, the person had the word coin in their username, and Becky's name is Becky AuCoin. And number two, the person was referencing stuff from several years ago, which is like the last time Becky was aware of what was going on with me. So, like, originally what happened was Becky threatened to sue my dad. That didn't play out like she wanted it to play out at all because I was live streaming the whole time, just reading all of the emails she sent to him out loud. So it didn't work out for her because the fairly decent number of people from this community and the larger kind of YouTube typology community or whatever, she had a fair number of that population on her side. And well, okay, PK saying if you want that to happen, then when you schedule a trip to the States or whatever, let me know. We'll have a video conference. Rachel and I can chat with you a couple of times. If you seem fine, then we do have people stay with us sometimes. I was living a different kind of life back then when I was living in Laverne, for sure. And we were having TWFP summer camp. That's when the first shit went down between me and Becky. Basically because I called her out on cheating on her boyfriend. And she didn't like that. I also called her out for being a shitty house guest, which she was. She didn't like that either. But, my disillusionment with her began when we first got to Laverne and she had forgotten something in her luggage. But it's also the case that her luggage had gone through like a TSA inspection or something. And she had some kind of insurance. So she proceeded to call the like travel insurance people that she had got travel insurance from and lie to them, claiming that her thing had gotten lost in her luggage, when actually she well knew that she had left it at home. So when I first heard that happening, I was just like, wow, she's awfully facile with the lies. I wouldn't be comfortable doing that. I would just be like, I'm not going to lie to these people, get them to pay for something that's not their fault. Do you have a fear of government at any level for criticizing them? No, not at all. Not in America. Gary Ford, I get that in Canada, you guys have to worry about that stuff, that your freedom of speech is not protected as it is here. And that's horrible, and it only produces good outcomes. But here, I have no concern about exercising my freedom of speech in any context because we have sane speech laws. There are certain kinds of speech that are protected that you cannot experience any kind of consequences for, and some kinds of speech which are not protected. But like, for example, I'm not worried about defaming Becky AuCoin and getting sued for defamation because everything I'm saying is true, and truth is an absolute defense against defamation. I don't doubt that Justin Trudeau has destroyed Canada. Certainly he hasn't helped, but that fortunately is not my problem. I will worry about America. When I run for president and hopefully win the presidency and stuff, at that point, I will scold Canada. I'll explain to them that you need to protect the integrity of a legal system, codified understanding of things that works across the board universally. You can't overreact to moments of the now. So it's like, does it work to have laws permissible in which they compel certain kinds of speech from people? Absolutely not. You might think, well, it works in favor of the good guys right now. If you're in favor of the good guys means like trans people or whatever. But it doesn't work in favor of people long term, because if that speech can be compelled, then any speech can be compelled. And all of a sudden you end up forced to testify against yourself in court, So, yeah, Canada is going down the wrong course of action. For one thing, another thing that's wrong with Canada is they they afford First Nations people too much power, too many rights. Like everybody should have the same rights. Everybody should be the same. No person should get special treatment because of the group they're in. Here, Lamb. I will make you a moderator, and you can put the link. Okay. You're the only reason you're not already a moderator here, Lamb, is because I just never had any reason to make you one, I guess. But I trust you, so I'm not worried about you being a moderator. It's going to run on a mega humble everyman's pinata man campaign. I mean, I'm going to run on the campaign. Instead of like MAGA, Make America Great Again, mine's going to say, let's get our heads out of our asses. Why does everyone pronounce gyro, hero wrong? Well, hero is the Greek pronunciation of gyro, referring to the kind of sandwich that they make. Whereas
the gyro, yeah.
Gyro is like a gyroscopic motion, like a top has a gyroscope. But I'm pretty sure the Greek thing is pronounced hero. Ruben is running for president of the American Swimming Association. Came here for crack in the microwave. I don't have any crack at the moment. Really, that's not unusual either. I usually don't have crack. In fact, I more or less never have crack. Now you can put a link here, Lamb. But if I did have crack, I still don't think I'd put it in the microwave. I'm not sure why one would do that. Yeah, I'm talking about her again, Dead Boy Class, because I think it might have been she who was here either last night or the night before, trying to trigger me by condemning me for being disrespectful, I guess, towards my dad when I asked Cameron to clean up the blood after he was dead. That didn't work on triggering me because obviously I'm not going to be made to feel guilty about something that happened after he died. After he died, it doesn't matter. Well, the behavior I had before he died, well, it's conceivable you could make me feel guilty about it, but even then, it's very unlikely anything anybody else could say could make me feel guilty at this point, certainly, because I've done so much self-accounting, beating myself up, feeling guilty, etc. Nobody could possibly be as effective at schooling me regarding that as I am at schooling myself. But the thing is, when Becky came in, or whoever came in and said that shit about how I was disrespectful to my dad, blah, 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 that, given the fact that the person's name had the word coin in it, and that was circa the last shit that she came around being toxic about. I mean, her last toxicity was about my dad. First, she threatened to sue him. Then, when that didn't work, and public pressure forced her she lost all of her allies, basically, as she harassed my elderly father to no avail. Anyway, after that, when my dad did kill himself, that cunt had the gall to text me this fake, like, condolences thing. I heard about your dad. I'm so sorry.
No, I don't have any New Year's resolutions. Do you, put a cat?
That boy Klaus says that is higher level trolling, considering doing some homework, but still amateurish. She didn't know the right troll trigger point. I don't think she has any troll trigger points available for me. But again, I don't know for sure that's her. It occurred to me after the fact that it might be, that things seem to point towards that. Regardless, the lesson from it is that that's an example of spite. There's no positive thing that could possibly accomplish for that person, whoever it was. The only possible outcome that they could accomplish is to cause me to feel bad, presumably. It didn't work in that way, but and instead it kind of backfired in that it made me interested in the topic of how toxicity expresses and the difference between a toxic ENTP and a regular ENTP. Did PK get hidden? I don't think you needed to hide him, Diamond. Diamond?
Yeah, you didn't
I'm gonna,
hide him.
I will unhide him. He all he did was say that Rachel was beautiful, which she is, you know. She's very beautiful.
Thank you.
So what you want to know is if this person is an ENTP.
Come on now.
That's not mine.
Oh, you had a good trick-or-treating session last night.
Very perhaps I need a cash.
Well, all your stuff was in this one.
I can't watch that shit. I can't watch cops. I don't know if Becky is spelled with IE or with I mean, is he really a creep? Oh, I didn't catch that one, Diamond. Grandpa, please adopt me. I will take care of your wife. I didn't catch that one. Okay, fair enough. Well,
time out though.
I'll time him out first before I hide his ass.
Yeah.
I see in the near future, if not already, that AI is monitoring all things we do and say, then producing government action reports and creating watch lists for social compliance enforcement. It's conceivable, but at the end of the day, if you're going to enforce something in America anyway, you're going to have to go through a court of law, and that kind of shit won't withstand scrutiny. Additionally, if you're going to try to use that evidence to convict somebody, then you're going to have to kind of admit that the evidence came from somewhere, right? From some kind of monitoring program. PK saying, just get along with business as usual. Well, just let things play out as they play out. All right. Poopy Balls is back. Is that you, Eric? Well, it's absolutely the case that the Chinese do an excellent job of brainwashing their population, as is evidenced by this one video I have up, I think it's still up somewhere, of me arguing with a student who's from China who was trying to defend China's imperialist aggression against Taiwan, and just can't conceive of a world in which you can both be a patriot and not support everything that your country does. It's called your social credit score. Well, I don't know about in Canada, but in America, we don't have anything like that. People should be equal opportunity haters. Right. I mean, what I like to say about typology is typology, unlike every other group label you might apply to somebody, it allows you to hate fairly and accurately. So if you truly don't like, say, ESFPs or ESTJs or ENTPs like me, then you can say, I hate ENTPs. And you're going to include people of every race, every gender, every age, every disability level, everything, right? And you'll probably be right. If you know you don't like ENTPs because they think they know it all, they talk too much, they're full of themselves, they want to argue with you, various reasons why you don't like ENTPs, well, then you're probably going to be right about every ENTP you encounter. Yep, and I've met another ENTP, and I don't like him either. Hate is a strong word. But my point is this. That in the status quo, people hate for the dumbest reasons. And they don't even hate individuals, right? They're just hating a group that doesn't even exist. They hate wokeists. They hate, gun people. They hate religious people. They hate atheists. They hate Muslims. They hate Christians. They hate women. They hate, people hate all kinds of things. So my point is, if in fact you don't hate groups, then that would be much more consistent with you being an ENTP than anything else, because I don't hate groups, So like this, a lone wolf, I'm not keeping Gaza hostage. You want the Ottoman Turkey Empire to come back into existence? I don't think so. peak reality today live. It's no joke. World War is close. World War may be close, but hopefully the Turkish Ottoman Empire is not responsible. People can call words whatever they want. I want to trigger distress and anxiety in everyone who's wrong. I want to trigger frustration in people who can't get their bullshit past me. Because, after all, that's the appropriate natural consequence of their bullshit. I don't use racial slurs because, not only because it's considered unacceptable and you'll experience social consequences, but because it's not civil discourse. It doesn't say anything relevant. It's not useful at all. It shuts down meaningful discussion of actual things that matter. I don't think grandpa's an insult either. I accept that younger people, they also go with unk. That's a Asian thing. Younger Asians call older Asians, like a young Taiwanese guy will call an older Taiwanese woman auntie and an older Chinese man uncle. Disliking someone for immutable characteristics is just dumb. Well, D2, I would say this, that it's less dumb if you dislike someone for the immutable characteristics of their personality. So if you know you don't like ENTPs because they all share these various traits in terms of their affect and display and engagement with the world because they all have the same function stack, then you're just being authentic to what kind of person bugs you. There's got to be some kind of person who bugs everybody, Not just Asians, but black people do it too. It's not meant to be inflammatory. Yeah, I just generally kind of accept it. But it is the things we don't like to hear need to be protected too. Well, sure, it's not meaningful to protect someone's speech that isn't controversial or that nobody has a problem with. You want to understand why America supports Israel? Well, I guess the idea is likely that they're a island of kind of Western society in the middle of the Middle East. I don't know. Not everybody in America is in favor of the probably overly tight relationship the U.S. has with Israel. Hating people in the status quo may stem from frustration with their complacency or complicity in perpetuating systemic flaws. Well, I mean, that assumes you're correct about both what kind of behavior comprises either complacency or complicity in perpetuating systemic flaws. In other words, anybody who plays according to the rules could be accused of complacency and complicity in perpetuating systemic flaws, even if they're working against elements of the system you don't like. So that kind of problem there, Spaceman, it seems like you're saying it's okay to hate boogeymen as long as you perceive them as boogeymen. But I don't know. If you're not talking about a specific person and have specific things to complain about, then probably your anger is ill-advised. And probably you're wrong about your policy considerations. We say, though, that you can work on that personality characteristic compared to height. Well, no, I don't think that my personality as an ENTP I can change any more than I can change my height, weight, skin color, gender, whatever. I think it's just as determinate. The only difference is how you're going to experience me has way more to do with my personality than any of those other physical things. In engaging with me, you're not going to end up liking me, trusting me, listening to me, or the alternative to those things based on whether I'm tall or short. It might have some influence, but the longer you know me and the longer you experience me, the less those physicalities are going to matter because you're dealing with the actual person rather than just their appearance at some point. This guy's a scumbag and hell will be treated as such. Well, you guys talk it out. I don't know. What do you say? Right. I mean, no comment about that specific guy. I was talking about the term grandpa in general. I don't give a fuck about him. You're a good police officer. Good job, Peg. Hey, that boy Klaus. I try not to call police officers pigs anymore. Now that I'm older, I think, let's try to be fair and realize that cops are individuals too. And you don't know what they're like until you meet the individual cop. The only pig is you and your mother. Thanks, Dynamite. That's great. That's wonderful. That way, Klaus? Now who's the pig? It's you. Not just you. Also, your mother. So, wow. I hope we all understand this now. India is so big that half the country doesn't even get along with the other half. I tell you what, you want me to play this little piggy? And we'll see who ends up where. We'll start with Kate. This little piggy goes to market. This little piggy goes home. All right, so I'm sure you're pinging him. I don't have an issue with that. I don't know what that means exactly. My mother is a saint, but that's a good burn if I were in junior high. But I called you a pig first, so good game. But it is true, that boy Klaus, that you called her a different kind of pig than she's calling you and your mother. I'm sure your mother is a saint, but I'm just saying she's not accusing you and your mother of being police officers. So it would kind of like be if one of you used the word deer, D-E-E-R, and one of you used D-E-A-R, they refer to different things. Try a mile in their shoes. Union SZN, aka Abraham, says, what's the drama? Well, there's not any huge amount of, there's not really any new drama per se. It didn't occur to me last night, or maybe it was the night before, when somebody came in talking shit that it might be Becky until after the stream was over. Then I thought, oh, maybe that was Becky. Anyway, the person came in and was trying to shame me for disrespecting my father by asking Cameron to clean up the blood after he offed himself. It was very below the belt kind of attack. It didn't hit because why would I feel guilty about my dad for something that happened after he died? At that point, it doesn't matter to him, I feel guilty about my failures before he died. I don't view that as a failure at all. I know. That's some low ass shit, right? But the coroner actually said to us before he left, he's like, I can give you the number of a service that cleans up exactly in this situation. Basically, cleans up after an SUICIDE.
Thank you as well.
Mary lied to her husband about getting pregnant by the Holy Spirit. My mom is way better than her. That boy Klaus, that wasn't a lie, okay? It was not a lie. After she came up with that excuse, Joseph checked her vagina and she still had a hymen. Sure, some people say that was just a piece of sheep's bladder that she had put there. But, she wasn't impregnated by the Holy Spirit anyway. She was impregnated by God himself, who came down with his massive God schlong and just really blew her out, Is it cold in Norway? Does a bear shit in the woods? Did she lie through, though, or did the Holy Spirit just go divine will and they couldn't do anything about it? I want to see you play PC games like Storage Simulator. I have a game for the PS5. I got a PS5, Abraham, and I have college football, which is pretty great fun. So anyway, the thing about Becky is she did successfully do harm to me while my dad was still alive. In that I probably would have been able to integrate my dad more into the channel. He was not opposed to the idea. Generally didn't think the channel was a bad thing, and was okay with the idea of going on it occasionally, but not once Becky emailed him those emails. So, she did harm to him and me to some extent. Uh, like maybe the end of my dad's life would have been a little bit more enjoyable for him if he had had an outlet to tell his stories for posterity and stuff. But because of the way that shit went down, it just never happened. He wouldn't have been a host. I would have interviewed him or told, let him tell his stories on camera and put them on the internet. But after Becky emailed him threatening to sue him, well, he was skittish about things he didn't understand in full, and as far as he was concerned at that point, it was just a legal liability, even though it never was and never could possibly be. But the thing is, I can see that defeat. Like she did successfully get me, right? Like she got me and my dad successfully. She did harm. It's unfortunate, but you would hope that she would at least be satisfied with that win for her. I mean, it wasn't a win for anybody, but that's spite for you. Does anyone know the difference between a hot dog and a Polish dog? Hot dogs can screw in light bulbs. Um, it is true that everyone's allowed to feel how they feel. However, that boy Klaus, I would suggest that your sympathy is probably a lie. I don't think that you're probably actually feeling sympathetic. Well, Dynamite, I will point out that I at least did conclude that while he maybe should have been timed out, he should not have been banned. So, in the end, why don't we just all give each other some fist bumps, some howdy hoes, a high five, a low five, and get along fine, okay? Fist bump, howdy ho, a high five, a low five, and get along fine. Everything's fine now. I think that boy Klaus might be married. Apocalypse breaks out. What items are you taking? Where am I taking them? Is the apocalypse global? If so, then there's no place to go. Regardless, I'm hunkered down right here. This place is excellent for any apocalypse that should happen. We're on propane. As long as we got a full propane tank, we'll be okay for a while. Let's all do a shot of Jaeger, get along just fine. That's what the elves and Santa do when Santa finally gets back. After dropping all the presents, they all do a shot of Jaeger. And that's just the beginning of the after party.
How long does the after party last for?
I mean, traditionally it lasts through all of New Year's Eve and then ends New Year's morning. So it's basically they do the shots of Jaeger, then they all do, all the elves and Santa and Mr. Claus, they all do bumps of meth and begin a 5 to 6 day bender,
Wow, I had no idea. This is news to me.
Can I survive a global nuclear war? Maybe, but I probably don't want to. It's like if anybody's going to, we're pretty isolated. I mean, Right, fine. In this scenario, you're in a big city and you don't have much information, but there's zombies outside. So we have to get out to the country to escape the zombies. What items do I bring? Well, obviously I bring a rifle, my rifle. I bring our emergency food supplies and a can opener.
I'd bring that first aid kit that we have.
Bring first aid kit. I'll bring the guitar because we're gonna need some music on the new frontier. Bring some torches. Bring my torches. For sure we need those. Bring a bong, all of our weed.
Something for...
all of our prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Then I'd want to quickly swing by any lootable store and get a couple magazines, such as Cosmopolitan Magazine, Red Book, Better Homes and Garden.
There were no makeup, like no fashion magazines at CVS at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely Klaus is right about this time, man. He called you a pig like a cop, okay? He did not call you a pig like oink oink. It's a difference. He was basically saying you're being authoritarian. He wasn't telling you you should be made into bacon. And I don't think you should apologize to him too, Diamond. I'm not saying you should apologize to him. I'm just saying, if you were under the impression, because you aren't familiar with the colloquialisms of America, perhaps, that he called you a pig like oink oink, that's not what he called you. He was saying you're like a cop. And you were being a little coppy. But that's okay. You know what? We can all have our coppy moments sometimes.
New Kids on the Block? Oh my god, they were one of my first favorite bands. The Beatles came first, but then like when I was like 5, like New Kids on the Block was like my jam. And like these like family friends of ours got me a poster of them for my birthday, and I don't know what I never knew what happened to that poster. It wasn't allowed.
Hold on, Gary Ford. Did you get that reference? It's going to be a wing. Is that part of the lyrics that too? I think Gary Ford got the reference when I said we have to have some music on the new frontier.
Oh yeah.
I think Gary got that reference.
Wow.
Good job,
I
Gary.
didn't even get that reference.
Am I right that you got that reference? Do you have a steady boyfriend? But down. That's a great album, isn't it, Gary Ford? Do you have the album? That's a fantastic album.
No, Kitty Cat. I was like 5. New Kids on the Block was like late 80s, early 90s. I was like 5, and I had a crush on Jordan. I never went to a concert. I was too little.
Wearing ambush and a French twist.
I'm so sad that they didn't have ambush at CVS.
I know,
That would have been like so clutch.
I was just at CVS and I was buying makeup because I have a plan for tomorrow. What I'm going to do is such a great album. Such a great album, Gary Ford. It's fantastic.
It's cool that you know that.
Yeah. It's like so many great songs on it. How about Maxine?
Maxine is so good.
Drive up to Manhattan and fill the place with friends. Drive to the coast and drive right back again. Then we will wake up, make up until then. Try to hang on, Maxine. Oh, Mexico City is like another world. Nice this year, they say. When Rachel went back to New York for a little while, I listened to that song. It was my song of the whole album's fantastic. I think it's the best Steely Dan album, and it's not a Steely Dan album. Have you heard one of his newish songs, Going Out of Business? That's the best Steely Dan song that's come out since Nightfly. Again, except now he's Steely Dan again. Because after Walter Becker died, he just became Steely Dan again by himself. Anyway, Going Out of Business is an amazing track. I'll put a link here. I might even play a little bit of it and hope I don't get too copyrighted. Let's see. going out of business. It must go. Okay. It's got a long, pointless saxophone solo at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Like a long saxophone solo intro that you gotta get past, like 45 seconds long.
Just skip forward.
But after you get past that, it's such a funky song. It's so classically Steely Dan and just fucking rad.
It's really good.
All right, so I'll get the link for it. Put it there. But this song, when I read like some music blog recommend it, saying I've got a weird suggestion for people this day. It's a new Steely Dan song. I know what you're thinking. Yeah, I don't want to listen to that. Well, anyway, the thing is, nobody else can pull off this shit that he's pulling off. Conceptually, if you think about what it is, you say, no, I do not think that's ever possibly going to be good. But like jazz, rock, fusion, whatever. But it's fantastic. Such a good song. Margaritas. I don't want to put it for too long or else it get copyrighted. But that song, check it out. Check it out. It is well worth anybody's attention. Just get past the initial saxophone solo. It's so funky, for like this old, I think he's maybe Jewish, white guy, who's obviously an INTP. He's like incredibly wordy in his liner notes and stuff. How can he be so funky?
So funky.
That song is funky as hell. I need a little FaceTime in the service elevator.
I like that song, Keisha. Like a funky old brother.
Funk Soul Brother. It's right about now. You're a Funk Soul Brother. Yeah, Donald Fagen's a super genius. Like, it's crazy because no sane artist should ever even attempt what he's trying to do. It's inherently doomed to fail. And yet, not only does it not fail, it kicks all kinds of ass unlike anything else. It's so totally unlike anything else. Steely Dan / Donald Fagen, they're not without misses. There are plenty of misses. They're not like the Beatles where they had just album after album of nothing but successful tracks. But they have a shit ton of really great tracks too, and that's way more than most people ever accomplish. They have like more than a dozen great songs. At that point you're at the pinnacle of music, because almost nobody achieves that. But that, The Night Fly is a criminally under the radar record. Like everybody should know that record and know all the tracks on it. But the fact that anybody got the illusion at all surprised me, Like Maxine is one of the most beautiful songs, period. You don't need to qualify it with anything. It's such a gorgeous, gorgeous song. And incredibly difficult to play, of course. when you try to play Steely Dan songs, you realize that this guy's he's really composing. You were born in 61, does that say? I'm born in 71. I was introduced to some of those older things like Steely Dan and the Beatles and the Nightfly album by my dad, who was a bit of an audiophile actually, but had terrible taste in music generally. But had he bought so many different things that I ended up encountering some things that were good. Now, the Nightfly is an interesting album too because it's it's super sterile in its production because all the drums on it are programmed drums at a time when programmed drums didn't really sound exactly like regular drums even if you wanted them to. And it's got a lot of synth stuff going on in there. Sounds very sterile. There's hardly any room noise. You know, you got no reverb on that album at all. I will go inside and I will read the chat. Right now, I don't have my glasses with me. So you're just going to have to be okay with me not reading what you say. And just to be clear, I want to be fair and accurate on things. I do not know for sure that was Becky. It could have been one of the other toxic people, probably from around that time, though, right? If they're referencing stuff that happened then, now, it means they're not very caught up, I guess. You know, it's like, I'm sure there's shit you could try to attack me about more contemporaneous to now. So it is suggestive that somebody from that time period was involved, you know, even if I got the specific person wrong. I don't mean to defame her or anything. Not just because I wouldn't want to incur liability, but because I don't believe in defaming people. It's also the case, though, that she, back then, did get very nasty. And it's also that back when I was living in Laverne and trying to muddle through this horrible relationship with Kimberly, she was a surprisingly helpful and effective, high-quality voice of kind of like reason and marriage counseling kind of stuff. She introduced me to the idea of internal family systems, which I found very helpful, and made some progress in helping Kimberly to understand that she wasn't really treating me right, you know. But that's the thing about people who have accountability avoidance syndrome. You're probably not going to find out until you need to hold them accountable. Then you find out. And you know, it's also the case that back in the time when I was living in Laverne, a large amount of the community, including people who were pretty close, you know, friends and stuff, were siding with Kimberly. We're thinking I'm the problem. I don't know what to make of that. Like, even Susie, for example, was not a voice of sanity. Plenty of people were voices of sanity. But I frequently heard from people back then that Kimberly was a bitch, that I shouldn't be in that relationship, other such stuff. I never hear that now. Everyone says, you guys are such a cute couple. You're such a great couple. Shit like that. I never hear like this woman's bad for you nowadays. Anyway, there was a different time. In some ways, it seems in respect like a very lively time. You know, we had people staying there for CWFE summer camp, make lots of stuff, etc. But you know, emotionally, it was a very difficult time. Even though there was a lot going on, I was in a morass of failing to deal with adequately, correctly, or whatever this abusive woman I was in a relationship with. I needed to get out of that, but you know, the campers started sleeping with each other and you had to stop. I just, you know, it's like, at some point I just had to say to her, like, don't you think you should at least tell your boyfriend that it's over instead of secretly doing this, you know, and telling him when you get back, supposedly? Like, why am I a party to this? But by that point, I had already seen her and her comfort with lying. And I didn't like it. I don't know. Call me a prissy pants or whatever, but...
Why would you be a pussy pants for that?
Well, because, you know, I'm not the one sinning in that capacity.
Yeah, but like she's using your space so she can engage in her moral and
Yeah.
moral.
Yeah, but if she hadn't told me if I didn't know about her boyfriend, then I wouldn't have thought anything of it, right?
Yeah. Still.
Yeah, quote, it's none of my business, but it's at my house. And also, it was like, there was this reality where it increasingly seemed like she had come exclusively to do that, because she'd be in there humping Sean a lot. And then when we're like, hey, okay, you guys are done with that, why don't you come hang out? And she's like, oh, I'm constipated. I need to not come out. I feel constipated. Okay, well, you weren't too constipated to fuck for the last hour loudly where everybody can hear you. But whatever. The point is, that's not a moral failing to be a rude house guest. But it kind of played into my understanding of what was going on as more as I'm just facilitating that, you know? Trust is hard to find but easily lost. True. So you live stream your life, Eric. You talk about what's happening. Did Becky not know you would talk about summer camp? Well, I mean, that is an important point, actually. Like, she had no reason to assume that I wasn't going to discuss everything going on online. That's what I do. You know, I guess that had a lot to do with why she got mad, is that I didn't get any accountability from her when I talked to her in person. And so I started complaining about it online, you know?
I like that you said good grief, Diamond.
I like good grief as well. You and Charlie Brown are the two people who say that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. You don't want. You don't what? You don't want to hear that? My mind didn't go there. I just pictured chihuahuas in frilly pink skirts. I know, Sage, but now you said it, Acacia, maybe not pink, maybe blue is the way to go. I can see clearly now that the rain has come. But anyway, I mostly wanted to start this live stream because if it was Becky who was saying that shit last night or the other night, I wanted to make it clear that, okay, it took me a bit, but I figured it out. It's you, okay. doesn't help you. You're not going to win. Maybe I just want to establish that no, you lose. Because, you know, I'm a petty little shit too. Who knows? Regardless, even if it wasn't her, I don't mind bringing her up again and recounting all the shit that happened, because what's the most important thing in the world is people experience the natural consequences of their own bad behavior. Having me talk about what shitty shit she pulled is the natural consequence of her bad behavior. Since it's all true, she cannot possibly accuse me of defamation. And I think even she understands the futility of threatening me with a lawsuit. That's why she threatened my dad in the first place. Or maybe she just thought I'm going to get to confer harms onto Eric in terms of his relationship with his dad, which of course it didn't impact that at all, really. It just prevented what might have been a good way to include my dad more in my life at the end of his life, and to let him, you know, have an archive of his stories, stuff like that. So it's sad that she successfully conferred those harms onto me, but it's sadder she conferred them onto my dad. And that's where she lost the support of everybody else, right? It's like nobody could be in her camp when she kept emailing my elderly father, and then he come in and tell her to stop emailing them, and I do so, and she just email him again, trying to tell him every secret that she thought was a secret that she knew about me. He said my dad knew all that shit already. He was under no illusions about his son being a great guy or anything. He thought I was a loser, you know. Oh, your son does drugs? Shocking news. Anyway, that was a real piece of shit move. But the thing is, I think what she was assuming is that families can be broken apart that easily. Healthy families can. Because my dad and I didn't necessarily get along. And I'm not sure that all of our engagements were healthy, especially towards the end of his life. But it is the case that we comprised a fundamentally healthy family for the duration of our lives. And he was not going to, you know, abandon me or something, cut me loose or punish me in some way because he found out some information from Becky that made me look bad. So only some of which was even true. Well, Winston's mom, I appreciate the sentiment, but the thing is, just because my dad thought I was a loser doesn't mean I agree with him. You know, he's my benefactor, and accordingly was intentionally configured to be one step ahead of me all the time. And, you know, it's like ignoring my tool function, being childish and selfish with my dominant function, and having as his dominant function my countervalued sixth, and having as his tool function my weak fourth. It just gives the benefactor too much of an advantage in terms of the relationship. And in my dad's case, that manifests as both not appreciating me for what I did have to offer and being very aware of the failings of in every way where I wasn't intentionally strong. So it was just kind of, it was just kind of inevitable, you know? It was inevitable. Sure. Seek help, man. You clearly have mental issues. Well, I mean, I guess to some extent, everybody has some kind of mental issues, right? Only some people are legitimately mentally ill, like a diagnosis such as bipolar, schizophrenia, or something like that. I definitely am not mentally ill, but if I were entirely issue free, in other words, if my conscience were entirely clear and I guess if I were living my best life, presumably I would be more happy, joyous, and free. I don't know. Would you like to try to articulate something a little more specific? You want to go into maybe why you're trying to shit on me? What is it about me that offends you and or triggers this kind of response? Any clarification would be fine. You think you're suffering from attention seeking disorder? Well, I definitely like attention. So I live stream quite a bit. I like to live my life in front of a bit of an audience. And the only reason I do YouTube is because I want people to pay attention to me. However, that's not a disorder. So, that's just consistent with my personality type, my cognitive function stack. Some people are extroverted and like to be in front of others and performing, and other people don't. Neither should be pathologized. You know, you're not you're not a coward who refuses to go in front of an audience. You just prefer not to. I mean, I don't think Nigel's projecting. He probably doesn't prefer to go in front of an audience. You know. Oh, you're concerned about my well-being. I mean, you clearly are not concerned. That's a lie. You're definitely trying to negate me, trigger me into some kind of hurt feelings or anger or something. Obviously, it's failing utterly, but maybe if you were to be honest, that would help. What's your real reason? It's so much more fun to shit on trolls than it is to ban them. That's what I mean by the online cops. I mean, I tend to agree. It's more fun to engage somebody like Nigel. Well, Nigel, you say I just look like a danger to myself and the public. I mean, it's definitely reckless to tell people to make those kind of accusations about people predicated purely on your perception of their appearance. So, you know, hopefully you don't ever have any power.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet.
You don't want to see me on the news, huh? Okay. Well, don't watch the news. If I am on the news, I'm sure it won't be for anything bad. Be something like local man rescues puppy from tree.
So like this bingo game is like if someone's like
Mike Oxmall?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are certain things that people will say a lot.
Or Unc. Grandpa.
Baldy. Mention my teeth. Say I'm on meth. Say I'm on crack. Is that your daughter? Are you homeless? You know, all these things. Of course.
So those are...
Yeah, is that your daughter?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the thing about trolls is if they were to do any kind of research ahead of time, like they would recognize that I've been on YouTube for 10 years, etc., then they might, well, for one thing they could do is they could find specific things to shit on that work. If you accuse me of being homeless, it's not going to work at all because I have a lovely home. If you accuse me of being mentally ill, it's not going to work at all because you know, various reasons. Anyway, let me go up and see what said here. I wanted to read it, but then it just got away from me. So Dead Boy Klaus says, "Oh yeah, can I oil you up or oil up?"
Yeah, oil up. Yes.
Troll equals spite monkey in my vernacular. I understand that the spite monkeys do more homework and have more venom, but they're the same species of scum. Yeah, I see spite monkeys as people who attack because of how some previous engagement went. Whereas trolls, when you'd be just here, stopping by, trying to troll, and then having to give up. Like this person, who was it? Nigel Farage Brexit. That is a troll because he's not referencing anything specific. He's not carrying on anger from a previous engagement where I schooled him or something like that. He's just trying to pluck at low hanging fruit. I look a little unkempt. My beard's pretty wild right now, so he'll just go with that, with what he first sees. But when he finds no traction and starts getting schooled, as happened here, he's gone. He's moved on. Oh, you are there. Okay. So that's a troll. And it's called, concern trolling. Concern trolling is a form of trolling. It's a form of pathologization trolling. So basically, your point is there's something wrong with you, but instead of saying, you suck because there's this wrong with you, you position it as, I'm concerned because there's this wrong with you. And then you can always try to fall back later on the idea that I'm just trying to help. Of course, nobody believes your bullshit. You're just a liar now, too. You're not just a troll, but you're a liar. So if you wanted to just troll, you could talk shit about my appearance, various things. But when you try to pretend like you're concerned, now you're just a liar, too. And that's pretty obvious to anybody. So try again. Strike two. You're asking questions about my health, you liar. I mean, being a troll is bad, but being a liar is worse, and you're a liar, so why even bother with troll? In Italy, they write down all their worries and vices they want gone, and at New Year's Eve, they light it on fire, and next year they are free from them. I wonder if that would work. Grasping at straws. Well, he's not sure what to do when called out on the tactics of concern trolling, Now that I've articulated specifically what it is, that I've encountered it plenty of times before, that strategy of pathologization is not going to work. Now he's left kind of like, what do I do? I mean, not by anybody serious, Nigel. I mean, you did a successful job of becoming an interesting topic of conversation. So we do like to engage the trolls that come around, and the haters, people who are trying to call into question my legitimacy or mental health, when obviously I'm incredibly mentally healthy. I'm very articulate and not particularly subject to provocation of your sort. But, I appreciate the content. It's interesting, something to talk about. Oh, that's what you meant by saying he was projecting when he said, I wanted attention. It makes sense. He certainly wants attention in the chat, And he believes that if he gets attention, that means he hit a nerve, triggered a response, or that he's releasing space in my head rent free, or any of those other expressions. What he doesn't get is I'm engaging with everybody in the chat, including him, and this is his chance to learn a few things about, picking your victims a little more wisely, if nothing else. Coming into a room and convincing everybody that you're a liar and bad at trolling. I'm sure that wasn't what you intended. I'm not Kramer, Kevin Bradley, nor am I anything like Kramer.
I think you're a special guy.
Thanks, darling. I think you're a special lady. You make me excited.
Oh my God, me too.
And then it's the most I've done since then. My love for Rachel becomes so intense sometimes that it gives me Down syndrome.
Me too. I contract it.
Hopefully the ski instructor has got some strong arms. YK, are you planning on having him carry some barbells around for you? Finding a better pastime. You could find a better pastime than coming here and trying to shit on me. But I get it, it's like, it's not, I'm sure, completely uninteresting occasion.
I think Hero Lim is right. For the holidays, you should do the Spring Break Girl.
Well, Nigel, at this point, I think we've come to an agreement that my mental condition is fine, but that you need some help with character issues because you're a liar. So, do you want to talk about how to deal with your problem with honesty and dishonesty? I think maybe you should take a lot more drugs. I'm thinking let's get you started on a regimen of hard drugs, beginning with, oh gosh, I don't know,
Hi, simple girl.
say 6 or 7 fentanyls. Well, Nigel, the thing is, again, you're lying. That's the point. You're not offering any consultation. You're not concerned about my mental health at all. You're just trying to attack me. And I get it. You're mad. You got butthurt of something maybe one time under a different profile, hurt your feelings or something. But sorry, bro. At the end of the day, you need to just go fuck yourself. And if you want to continue flailing in ways that are annoying, because at that point, when you're telling me to stop smoking weed, obviously, no decent human being tells another adult what to do like that. So you just proved yourself to be a shitbag, and I'll just hide you. I'm going after his character because he's lying. I'm saying you can troll without lying. He could just talk shit about my appearance, taunt me for things about me the whole time without lying. When he says he's doing it out of concern, then he's just overtly lying about it. And in that case, it's an issue of character. If I wanted to troll, I'd manage to do it without lying. It's just a smarter approach to go because, after all, if you lie, somebody might call you out on it like I am now. Oh, well, even if it's not the diss, I think for most people that I think of it as it is, I understand it for what it is. The person loses all their credibility. So whatever they say, it just might as well be meow, 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 meow.
Look at what I asked ChatGPT about Keeper, and look what it says.
My glasses. Rich in probiotics. Kefir contains live bacteria and yeast that can help maintain a healthy balance of gut and vaginal flora.
Yeah, again, it meant just
Vaginal
flora.
flora. Wonderful. So, Nigel, again, when lying, at least try to make it not quite so obvious, because I can quote your exact words. Which were, let's see, find them. You just look a danger to yourself in the public. If you're not judging me on my appearance, what are you suffering? What are you judging me on? Right? Say, I look, yeah. What are you judging it on? If not my appearance. So, sorry. Well, the point is, there are certain contexts in which lying is more significant than others, right? If you are lying in some personal, private, particularist context, then presumably you either have stable matters of credibility, you're not going to get caught, or It's a kind of lie where it's hard to catch you because it's subjective, you know. So I mean, some mental conditions can have visual cues, like Down syndrome, for example, expresses as a certain kind of facial structure. But simple, the kind of mental problems that you say I have certainly don't appear as some sort of physical cue. They're not expressed phenotypically. So you're either wrong or regardless, you've got absolutely no cause to question my mental health. For example, if you were to have an actual cause to question it, you might say something like this. I couldn't help but note that you voiced very contrasting perspectives on the same thing within just a couple of minutes. It made me worry that maybe you're having a manic episode. In other words, if you want to troll in this fashion, to pathologize and troll, you'll need to do a better job of it. You'll need to actually find something that's worth pathologizing. So far, the only thing you found worth pathologizing is the way I look, right? So, since you don't have any actual justifications, obviously, that's not going to work here with me. I think most mental health issues are hard to detect physically, except maybe depression and mania. Well, you might be able to spot mania, but even then, it's probably more like a behavioral thing or a habit of speech.
Hi, Heather P.
Hi, Heather P. I have a question. If someone calls you crazy, you deny it, and then they call you defensive. That's what a crazy person would say. How can you progress the conversation productively? I mean, I just say at that point, well, what would a sane person say? You know, at that point, you want to switch to asking questions, I guess. Yeah, I've encountered it before plenty of times. Various people want to pathologize me, and it's a popular way of attacking to pretend to be concerned about someone's well-being when really you want to say your normal self is so fucked up that a random person coming in is concerned about you. No, I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to the 19 people here, including you, Nigel. If you think I'm talking to myself, then perhaps you're unaware of where you are, what you're doing. I'm not sure because I am actually addressing you, Nigel, and talking to you. And when I'm not addressing you directly, I'm addressing the general group or whomever might be listening. After all, this is not just a live stream experience, but will eventually become a video that people can watch later on if they want to. Accordingly, information I convey within the video while I'm talking, it does not comprise talking to myself. And at some point, if you were anything but a unmitigatedly ill-intentioned troll, then you'd acknowledge at some point, like, well, I guess I really misread this guy. He's got answers to everything I say. He's correct. I haven't indicated any kind of thing to actually be concerned about. He's correctly pegged me as lying about my concern. And I guess I should just come clean. But you're not doing that, so you're just digging yourself into a deeper hole. There's no good way out of the situation. Madness is not contagious. Don't worry, everybody. Maybe some kinds of madness in some circumstances, but generally speaking, no. Madness is not contagious. Words have a cost. I mean, words are interesting. People try to do different things with them. And depending on what you're trying to do, a different approach with words can be effective or not. If I'm trying to convey insight about something, it's good to have concision. If I'm trying to explicate all the justifications for something, I still need concision at the sentence / paragraph level, but I may need to articulate a lot of specific things in succession. If you're trying to use words to convey information about your subjectivities, then you don't need nearly as many words. I feel angry. You might say why, but I feel angry is usually enough. I had a really lousy day, so I came here to steal some happiness from some unsuspecting victims. Oh, cool. Come take some of mine. How do I make it available for you to steal? I'm in a pretty good mood. K.E., are you kneeing me in the balls? If so, why? What did I do? Naziz? Why did you delete that one? Oh, I see.
Oh.
Gotcha. I didn't get that at first. I just thought it said Naziz.
Me too.
What does that mean?
And then I'm like, oh.
Puttycat says, I had an overly great day, so I want to share my overly great day with someone that had a bad day. Cool. You're in luck. Sean is in the market for that.
Do you guys realize how CBS is constantly very shitty?
CBS is constantly very shitty. True. Oh, you're not talking about me? All right. Well, that's fine. If my boss got need as collateral damage in an otherwise just battle, I might be okay with it. We'll see. Let's find out after the fact. Fly like an eagle to go pee. Fly like an eagle, pee from the sky on me. Don't I have to land on a tree first to do that? We are the world. We are the world. We are the world. We are the world. Abracadabra, I want to reach out and grab you. That song is now considered not kosher because it would seem to advocate unwanted groping.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
unannounced groping.
Yeah.
Instead of they had or not had problems. I don't know what that means. Jagons. Then you throw them over your shoulder. See Psyche at your service. Birds don't have to land to go pee, do they? I'm sure they can pee while flying. If I were a bird, that's the only time I would pee. I'd fly over people below, and depending on whether I thought them bird friendly or not, I'd pee on them. Some people wake up looking for triggers. That's true. Well, some people, all right, cool, Jagons. I agree. Those darn Nazis can go F themselves. I would say the following. That some people do wake up looking for triggers. Some people wake up in a fussy mood. I know I do sometimes. And it's like what I really need to do when that happens is just go right back to bed, sleep more. No good comes from me staying awake while fussy. It's a private service for the chosen ones, friends and loved ones. Okay, cool. No, I don't think Trump is that. I don't think you understand what a Nazi is. Trump is not one. Trump is a bad president for a variety of reasons, but he's not a Nazi. The last 2 weeks or so, I've been irritable while finishing up this bronchitis. And how you feel makes a lot of difference. If you have some kind of illness or something, it can make a lot of difference. Rachel was crashed out hard for a while because she was battling an infection. Now she's on, um, now she's on, what do they call it? Antibiotics. Yeah. Carlos Pio says, a Nazi is someone a left winger doesn't like. I mean, if you're going around insulting others left and right, are you expecting a hug from them and consultation for your issues while you block theirs? I don't know. Communist equals someone a right winger doesn't like. I see. Well, I mean, the thing is, at least communism links to something more specific, right? If you call somebody a communist because they want to raise taxes and spend more money with the government, at least it links to the same warrant. You know, they're a collectivist in some sense. But whereas it's not the case that Trump has really anything at all to do with the Nazis. And what exactly a Nazi is a little bit more vaguely defined than a communist. Nazis are essentially crony capitalists plus eugenics. Crony capitalism plus eugenics plus dictator. It's kind of a strong man war economy. It's important to remember also that Germany didn't spend much time under Hitler where their nation's production wasn't being directed towards arms production. So it's a little bit more reasonable to say that, say, Harris is a communist than it is to say Trump's a Nazi, just because Nazis is kind of a catch-all word, like Darko Crude says, whereas communist means essentially centralized decision making, and sure, technically it might mean government owns the means of production, but in practice, we understand that to be that economic liberty is constrained as the government claims more and more of the totality of the economy. That's something that does happen with increased taxes and stuff. Oh, I'll just hide him. He got boring. I just hit him. There you go. We don't need to engage him anymore because he's boring now. Trump being a Nazi with my Panamanian family. Okay, well, that's fine. Look, Jay Gons, if you want to say that Trump's approach towards illegal immigrants from the south of the border is equivalent to being against a racial group or whatever, that's a fine enough comparison to make. But you'll note that he's not going after legal residents. He's not saying, and get the legal Mexicans too. Now, granted, he is going to, unfortunately, end up harming plenty of immigrants and their families and people who have their lives intertwined with them. I'm not a pot smoker, so here's an honest question. How can you tell someone has smoked too much? I mean, you really can't smoke too much weed and get too high. But you can eat too much and get too high. Weed is not like alcohol. It's not the case that if you keep smoking weed, like each bong rip makes you an equivalent amount drunker as the previous one. It doesn't work like that. The more you smoke, the less it does to you. The tolerance thing on it is ridiculous. Well, there are no global policies, Katie. Only nation states have policies. The international community might agree to quote unquote international law, to abide by certain international law, laws regarding the interactions between countries, but obviously only nation states can raise taxes, or states or municipalities. They can't. You can't. That's the whole idea of national sovereignty, is that a country is responsible for its own internal and external affairs, and that laws come from nation states. What overarching principle is she talking about? It's linked to specific income groups. I mean, yeah, obviously, when it comes to taxes, anytime that we don't have a flat tax that taxes everybody the same percentage, ideally a consumption tax, but anytime you don't have a flat tax, you're going to have a regressive tax. There's no such thing as progressive taxation.
I feel like lying down.
Okay.
I love you.
I love you too, darling. It's always on balance going to do vastly more harm economically to a country to have complex reams of tax code trying to use taxation as some kind of political thing, like trying to motivate companies to do meow by offering them tax breaks, or having different percentage of taxes being paid by different income brackets. Like, that whole thing is a complete disaster. Well, the reason is, first and foremost, when you have complicated taxation of that sort, then you create a cottage industry of people who are experts at navigating that incredibly complex tax code. Accordingly, you've got rich people who first and foremost have existing wealth that's largely going to be exempted from taxation, right? So let's say Joe earns $5 million this year because he's a professional athlete and makes a lot of money. And he pays accordingly. Let's say he pays, $1.5 million in taxes or something. If Jay Gons needs to be hidden, go ahead and hide him. Well, yeah. I trust YouTube to understand that I'm one of the good guys because I'm correct. I assume my correctness will win the day. I'm not worried about that. Anyway, what was I saying before that? Oh, right, taxation. So the thing is, when people talk about wealth disparities or even income disparities, what they're not taking into account is that the existing wealth that rich people have has already been taxed. They can't reasonably expect to raise taxes on the rich and meaningfully get more money from actually rich people unless they try to go after what's in your bank account that you already have, that's already been taxed. There should be no double taxation. So we should never have any capital gains taxes, because just because your investment paid off and you made money on it, well, it's still money that you earned in the first place that you chose to invest. Capital gains taxes, though, most of all, need to be gotten rid of because of their impact on keeping wealth locked in place. Because they impact how and when people choose to divest, it prevents money from moving through the markets freely and fluidly and responsibly to investment opportunities and changes in the ecosystem. So progressive taxation is a problem for a couple of reasons. Number one, nobody who's actually rich gets income that way. So it's harming people who make a large salary or large wages, but it doesn't harm people who, for example, are receiving a substantial amount of compensation in stock options, right? Because then, and those stock options, the only taxes they'll pay on those are capital gains taxes based on what they were worth initially. If they're worth the same, then bada bing, bada boom, a bunch of income untaxed. If if instead of getting paid in salary or stock options, they are having their their salary rendered in instead of as a salary to them rendered as dividends paid by the company on a unique relationship to that person as a stockholder, and thereby avoiding having to be paid for as a salary and avoiding things like Social Security taxes, or perhaps they are simply have themselves as a corporation, as an independent contractor, and they get all of their money as money paid to the corporation, and then they are able to not only just pay corporate taxes on that, um, but also write off a bunch of shit that they might otherwise not be able to write off. Presumably, if you're the government, you say, well, at some point, this guy needs to pay himself a salary or something in order to have money to spend. But in practice, there are plenty of ways to avoid that stuff. So, at the end of the day, the more complicated the tax code gets, the more you're just taxing people for bad TE instead of taxing people based on any meaningful thing like who makes more money. You're taxing them based on whether or not they're good at avoiding taxes. The only way to avoid this is to have a nice simple flat tax. And remember also that the amount of waste that goes towards tax professionals, that's productive work in the status quo being done, and presumably produces more wealth accordingly, but it's it's a drain on the whole economy in the same way that health insurance is a drain on the whole economy, is this unnecessary middleman between the citizenry and the government. If the government wants to tax everybody, it should be simple, straightforward, and something you don't have to pay any attention to. You shouldn't have to keep records and shit like that, right? Flat consumption tax is the solution, for sure. And it's like, and nobody should oppose this because I'm not saying let's do a flat consumption tax and generate less revenue for the federal government. I would like that, but I'm saying let's just change the taxes up so the government gets the same exact amount of money so we get the least pushback on this. We just do it in a sane way. We'll put all the H&R blocks and everything out of business. Nobody needs that shit anymore. Well, in the status quo, food is untaxed. Regardless by a vote. In the status quo, there's no sales tax on food. But the thing to remember is this. If you're like, gosh, money's tight this month. I only have, let's say, $4,000 money to spend for all of my bills and everything, including groceries. Money's tight. As it is with groceries, I'm spending $300 on groceries for myself for the month. If I had to pay taxes of like, let's say, 10% or something, I had to pay $330. I can't afford more taxes on the food. What if it were 20%? I'd pay $360. Come on now. But what you're not accounting for is if they didn't take all the taxes out in the front end, you'd have $5,000, not $4,000. So yeah, you'd pay more in taxes here, but you'd have substantially more money to spend. So we got to end Social Security taxes, which just rob people of money, predicated on a promise, which, you know, of questionable reliability to provide money to you when you're old. No smart young people are counting on Social Security to carry them in their retirement. Fun fact about Canada. We have a carbon tax on fuel and a sales tax on the carbon tax. Fun. That would just end up as inflation either way. Well, no, I mean, the thing is, it wouldn't end up as inflation. Okay? It would just mean that the amount of total money that people have to spend in the economy is more, and the taxes are collected in a different spot. They're collected at the consumption spot, right? Whether or not there's inflation, that links to whether or not there's been new productive work done in the country to produce the intangible quality of new wealth. If that amount of new wealth equals the total amount of currency coming in, then there's not inflation. If the amount of currency coming in is greater than this actual number, then there's inflation. That's what happened with COVID. All the work stopped, the quantitative easing continued, and we had massive inflation. It's because the work stopped, though. It wasn't because we're infusing more currency into the economy. That's necessary to keep pace with it. No, Carlos, you don't understand. What's happening is people are keeping more of their money, right? But they're making the same amount of money. The government is taking less of their paycheck, but they're getting the same amount of it from taxes. It's just in a different location. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed at all. They're still making the same amount of money, and the government's still getting the same amount of taxes. So nothing's changed at all. The only thing that's changed is where that occurs. No, that's not inflationary. You don't understand how things work. So in the status quo, the total amount of money a person makes, that represents a total amount of actual wealth in the country, okay? Whether part of that goes to the government or that it all stays with the person, it's still, whether or not, how much this dollar is worth is determined by whether it represents $1 of actual wealth or just a half a dollar of actual wealth, right? So it's absolutely not inflationary to have the average populace, average member of the populace keep more of their own money to spend. That's not inflationary at all, because the money still represents the same amount of total intangible wealth, which is, because wealth is one of those few things in life that exists first metaphysically before it exists physically as a coin or something like that. No, I think you don't understand this clearly. You've not provided any mechanism to explain why it would be inflationary, given that the ratio of currency in the country to actual wealth, which is to say, like how much buying power a dollar has now, right? What you're saying is, if I give 25 cents of that dollar to the government, now that dollar is worth more. It's not. You are wrong. It's worth exactly the same. It's just you only have 3/4 of it now, and the government has 1/4 of it. You're ignoring the government as a consumer. It's the same amount of money spent on the same amount of stuff. It's just if the government takes it, then they're the consumer. They might not be spending it as wisely. And accordingly, you're going to feel a pinch when the government takes more money. If what you were saying is true, then presumably the opposite would be true. That if you have less money, it's deflationary. And so all of your money is worth more. So if the government takes 9/10 of your money, then your $1 has 10 times the spending power. But that's just not true. No, Carlos Paiva, you're trying to avoid making an actual warrant that actually explains something in a meaningful way. And you're making a claim that if the average person in an economy has more money to spend, then that causes inflationary pressures. It does not. It could mean the economy is booming and everyone's getting actually wealthier in terms of real spending power. That happens too. And you're not making any real critiques, right? You're not responding to anything I'm saying. No, I'm not assuming it's linear. I'm explaining. Okay, I don't even want to argue with you. You don't get it. You don't get what causes inflation even. So you're under the impression somehow that the total amount of wealth is distributed to various people. That's not how it works, dude. No, you're not pointing out where I'm wrong. You didn't point out where I'm wrong at all. You're using terms that kind of gesture at something like you're being too linear. Well, I'm articulating a specific way in which things work. If you're not articulating a specific way in which things work, then you don't have a good reason to believe what you believe. It's just how it is. So I've articulated specifically how wealth and currency work. I've articulated how the total amount of a currency in the economy in some way is not just does not just include the money that people have, but also includes the money the government has, right? Because most of that money the government's going to spend in some way that trickles back down to the U.S. economy. Some of it'll go as direct foreign aid, for example, but I agree with you if you're going to say the government's a much less effective consumer. So we're dealing with a lot of spoilage anytime we send more money to the government. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they think that taxing rich people more helps poor people get richer, which it definitely never does, right? That's just not how it works at all. The government's job is not to get people richer. But Carlos, I'm guessing you're young, maybe idealistic, maybe infested by college brain disorder or something. Because I don't think one thing is very clear. I've articulated something specific, real warrant, real explanation, real arguments. And you don't like that, which is why you say it's too linear. You don't seem to get that if you don't have any real arguments, nobody should agree with you. I didn't start this to argue with everybody about politics anyway. I started this to talk about toxicity and spite and shitty people doing shitty things for shitty reasons. Carlos is not any of those things. Carlos, you're not a shitty person doing something shitty for a shitty reason. You're just wrong and stubborn, like a lot of people. You don't want to learn, like a lot of people. People have a striking unwillingness to learn. So, Carlos, you don't have a different definition of wealth, do you, that's better than an intangible quality generated by people when they do meaningful work for one another? And do you have a different understanding of where wealth comes from or what it means? Do you think that quantitative easing, that is to say, adding more currency into the economy, if you keep the rate of quantitative easing constant, do you think that the inflationary or deflationary rate remains constant? Do you have a better explanation for the inflationary pressures post-COVID than the straightforward enough explanation I gave, which is absolutely consistent with what we all do know about inflation, which is namely, if you pump more currency into the economy at a rate that's not paced to keep pace with anything, then you're going to have inflation. My explanation is that people stop doing meaningful work, generating the intangible quality of wealth, and accordingly, the inflationary results that I predicted well in advance of them occurring happened for the reasons I articulated. It's like, so this is what it sounds like if you're correct about this shit. You note how I'm making specific arguments, make specific claims with specific warrants. You're responding with a generic dismissal of I'm being too linear. Well, I mean, I'm making an argument people can understand, anybody can understand, and either argue against or agree with. You're doing neither. You're not arguing against anything I'm saying, nor are you agreeing with me. You don't have a preferable alternative explanation for how things work. And what I'm saying is absolutely consistent with what we know for sure is one example of how inflation occurs. If you pump shit tons of new currency into the economy, all of a sudden it becomes inflated. It becomes worth less, you know? The problem is economics in the status quo is filled with a bunch of people who are terrible at what they do, who don't even understand anything, who don't begin with basic questions like what is wealth? I know because I ran into plenty of economics arguments, various sorts, in debate. You know, when you encounter the whole range of bullshit from the so-called multiplier effect, there's various, economists who argue in papers and economics journals and shit that money spent by the government has a multiplier effect, that it's actually worth more to the economy than money spent by people. But as far as I can tell, and I've read this plenty, as far as I can tell, they just make that claim and justify it with nothing. I've never found a single justification for this argument. There's no reason to believe it to be the case. It's just a claim some economists make to justify either, depending on what they're trying to justify, like stimulus checks or I don't know, government spending on airplanes and stuff, military gear or something. It kind of would make sense if you're talking about, like, even then it doesn't make any sense. It's still worth the same amount of money. It's like, let's say you do cut a stimulus check to everybody. Why is that $500 actually adding $2,500 to the economy? Like, why that? Why? How? There's no explanation as to how or why, right? It's just a claim made. So you encounter this kind of shit in economics all the time throughout the literature. And I can tell you, you just need to listen to what I'm saying. It withstands scrutiny. It's correct. It explains things well. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I mean, look, there's a reason why we're talking about this sort of thing here. It's because it's the sort of thing I actually know a lot about and I'm correct about. There are other things where we don't talk about it much here. Like if someone comes in, they're like, I'm a paramedic. I'd be like, oh, cool. So like, how does that go? Like, do you encounter a lot of people dying or something? And then I elicit some stories from him. I won't carry on about how this is what happens inside an ambulance because I don't know, right? I don't know about that. I do know about this. And I know from the pits of fire, not from casually reading what I cherry pick to go along with my existing positions or something. I learned about all these things having to argue both sides of everything, to read for a warrant, to isolate the warrant and determine if it's correct. It seems clear that you're not arguing from that perspective at all. Like, vagueness should not be preferred. How many people does it take to have a New Year's party? 2 and a fifth. Pow! With no sage comes no wisdom. I said the same thing she did. Wrong hole. Is that what you said, Sean? First thing that came to my mind is wrong hole. That's the name of my restaurant, by the way. A restaurant that only serves the anuses of various creatures. It's called Wrong Hole. Diamond, I think it's fair to say that you are No Sage's frenemy. You're neither friend nor enemy, and a little bit of both. All right, so you guys want to boogie down? Let's do some boogieing. I'm maybe going to wrap this up after we boogie a bit. Let's go boogieing down. Let's go boogieing down. Everybody boogie with me. We're going to boogie right now. If you like boogie, then you'll like boogieing with me. Let's boogie. Who would like to boogie? Do we have any boogiers here? Okay. Let's see. Open. Let's see. Let's go to this one. See what it sounds like. Here we go. This is more like a good aerobics song. So we're going to be doing some aerobics. Some jazzercising. Come on, girls. Get up and move your bodies. It's time to jazzercise. Let's jazzercise. Let's jazzercise. Tonight. Reach over here and bring it over here. And reach over here, and then put it on your stomach. Let's jazzercise. Let's jazzercise. Let's jazzercise. Together tonight, we're gonna touch our toes all the way to the floor, and touch our toes while we jazzercise. It is okay if you bend your knees when you touch your toes and you jazzercise. Let's go. Let's jazzercise. Let's go and jazzercise. Excellent. Excellent work, everybody. Do you feel like you're in shape now? I feel like I'm in shape. I jazzercised. That's really the most you can. Not jazz, no sage. It may not have been jazz, but it was still jazzy. Yeah, I mean, maybe I can make a career of being a jazzercise instructor on YouTube. I could do it over here, so it would have a nice framing behind me, you know. Just be like, except, you know, maybe you want to see my whole body if I was going to jazzercise. We could do it this way. Let's see. Let's see how my jazzerification looks over here. Jazzerification? Jazzercising. I guess I sighed probably because I'm tired, probably want to rest, you know. Waiting until tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit more of an interesting day. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. Rachel and I have planned, we're going to make a video in which I put her makeup on her and teach her about the ways of makeup artistry. I see her sometimes watching YouTube videos about how to put on makeup or something. Well, why does she need to watch those when she's got an expert makeup man right here? So this one, maybe I want to a little bit further. Stand on one leg, stand on the other leg, stand on one leg, height, height, height. That would be one of the exercises we could do. We could do, put your hand on your shoulder and move your elbow up, and move your elbow down, and move your elbow up. Put your hand on your shoulder and move your elbow up, and down, and up, and down, and up. Now move your arm to the left over here, and you put it on your square, and you touch your rear. We could do like that kind of jazzercising. You guys will not withstand this information. You will look it up someday. What information? That thing you just said? US 53563. Why don't you just tell me what it is? Make a career of your own doing. Don't let other people discourage you what you love to do. You mean jazzercising? Well, why don't you just tell us what it is? Why do I have to look it up? Method of apparatus for inducing desired states of consciousness. Google patents. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Well, now I'm curious. If you just said that, Luca, instead of me being combative, I would have just been like, wow, I want to know more about this. Improved methods and apparatus for training human brain patterns, employing frequency response techniques, facilitate attainment of desired states of consciousness. In one embodiment, a plurality of electroencephalogram waveforms characteristic of a given state of consciousness are combined to yield an EEG waveform to which subjects may be susceptible more readily. In another embodiment, sleep patterns are reproduced based on observed brain patterns during portions of a sleep cycle. Entrainment principles are applied to induce sleep. In yet another embodiment, entrainment principles are applied in the work environment to induce and maintain a desired level of consciousness. A portable device is also described. Oh. It's expired. The patent's expired. But maybe Google. Yeah, it's expired. So whoever wanted to do that, they didn't do the next step or something. The patent expired. 1, 2, 3, 4, ladies, hike up your drawers. Hike up your drawers. See, my basic idea for my aerobics channel is that it provide both aerobics and parappa the rappa style rapping along with the aerobics. So the aerobics have to be pretty easy, you know. Really? Who does that to you though? It's obviously public information. You just Google it and find out. You know. All right, everybody, ready? We're gonna jazzercise together over here somewhere. It's good for you. Go on, get up. Just get up and start jazzercising. Ready? First, you put your leg in the air. Then you stand like this. Then you move your hands, pretend you're running. While you stand like this and put it down. Next, you go with your hands some more like this. And then you lift your other leg up the left. There we go. Don't fall over the. If you do, then you suck at this. You should show some better ability. Now move your arms like you're making a windmill. Prevent yourself from falling over while you're standing. Now use your other arm and make another windmill. Do them both at the same time. So, you know, obviously, these are going to be short workouts. Very short, because I get tired quickly. You're not going to have a lot of time to get your workout done. I don't really want to have a conversation about this because it will not help anything. And will just make me sadder. My aerobics thing there could also be training for passing a field sobriety test. I'm not sure I would pass based on my performance there, but maybe I would. Let's see what's on the televisor. I wonder if there are any sporting events on today that are worth watching. Well, there's Monday Night Football. The real question is, are there any bowl games on? Whew, my new career as a jazzercise instructor is tiring. Oh, very well. I will watch Monday Night Football. Yes, I will. So I'm going to start back a bit, and we'll see how the Niners do. Probably going to wrap up this live stream pretty soon. Who do you think will win? Niners or Lions? Well, I would say probably, well, I mean, realistically, the Lions have to be favored, probably by a good margin, but I don't know. It's at San Francisco. And the Niners are just, they're still a talented team that's just had a rough year, you know? They could easily win this game. I'm sure they're going to be playing a little bit mad. They're already eliminated from the playoffs. Last year, they went all the way to the Super Bowl, right? Deebo Samuels is a good player. You know who else is good? Brandon Ayuk. You got a good receiver pair. Obviously, their running back, McCaffrey, he's a beast. But at the end of the day, what you need more than anything else, you need a healthy team, stays healthy. George Kittle also. George Kittle's great. But you need your team to stay healthy, and you need effective line play, right? No matter what kind of offense you're running, if you're running a pass-heavy offense, you need good pass blocking. If you're running a run-heavy offense, you need good run blocking. No, I'm just talking on the offensive side of the ball now. Obviously, defense matters, but it seems like the Niners' offense has been more what let them down this season than defense. So the 13-2 Lions, though, I think have their hands more full in this game than they normally would in a game against a 6-9 team. Oh, big hurdle. Pearsall. Pearsall. Mr. Pearsall. He almost dropped that pitch. It was a reverse, you know. Maybe even a double reverse. I get, there we go. It's just like a weak sweep or a sweep to the left side of the field, short side of the field. Anyhow, it's funny seeing that play in football. I've been playing a lot of football lately on the PS5, and I recognize the plays. 13. Don't tell me. God damn it, David Erlbacher. I had time saved up. Now I might as well just go ahead to the current moment. Now I'm going to have to watch the commercials and everything. Horrible. Hi, William. It's okay, David. I forgive you. I forgive you. Probably better to just watch it live anyway. Detroit Lions. It's crazy that the Detroit Lions are, if they beat the Niners anyway, they are going to be the winners of their division, and the Vikings will have to get in via a wild card, even though the Vikings are 13-2, I think. They're not even going to win their own division, thanks to the Detroit Lions. I guess they must have a head-to-head advantage or something. I don't know what the tiebreaker is, but 14-13. San Francisco in the lead. 10 minutes remaining here in the second quarter. I'm Bryant Jennings, and this is Paul Benacki, and we're here tonight on Monday Night Football to tell you the words that you need to hear while these people are playing football. I'm standing in a suit. I've got a headset on, and I too am standing in a suit with a headset on. I've got a pen in my hand. I'm ready not only to tell you things, but also to write things down. My name is Troy Aikman. Now the hike. The quarterback gets the ball, he throws it, and the pass is completed for a first down. I'm not sure who's quarterbacking the Niners now. It is Purdy. Okay. Purdy's been injured some. I wasn't sure if he was playing tonight or not. It is Purdy. So I like the Niners' chances better with Purdy than with the alternatives. And Goff, former Rams quarterback, is of course the Lions quarterback this year. Matthew Stafford, the Lions' former quarterback, is the Rams quarterback. And the Rams did, in fact, make the playoffs. So both Stafford and Goff, current and former Rams quarterbacks, and current and former Lions quarterbacks, are in the playoffs. First and 10 for the 49ers. Up to the line, under center is Purdy. He motions and hands off on a bit of a misdirection to a running back who gets about 1 yard, perhaps half of 1 yard. Austin Pleasance. Austin Pleasance is a 6'7", 330-pound sophomore in the NFL. Was an undrafted free agent coming out of college in 2020, and now plays for the San Francisco 49ers. And he's enjoying his time here on Monday Night Football. Purdy up under center, has his hands. He moves the wide out, and this time he does hand off to him. Prior, we had the fake jet sweep going into basically a zone, a run zone, don't run. And then this time they have the actual jet sweep. and it gets blown up just as quickly as did the fake jet sweep. So right now, the 49ers play calling is not fooling the Detroit Lions at all. And they're going to try to pull off something a little different this time. As Purdy's in the shotgun, he drops back, he steps up, he throws the ball deep, he connects with his receiver number 14 all the way down to about the 8-yard line or something. And excellent job. Excellent work by the 49ers. Both the throwing part and the catching part. Wonderful job. I mean, the ball was a little underthrown. Pearsall had to wait for it. Pearsall, I don't know how you say it, number 14, Pearsall. He had to wait for it a bit. He had to slow down and wait, and then he got there. And that allowed the Detroit defender to come up and make the tackle. If he had caught him in stride, it would have been a touchdown. Purdy now up under center again in the offset eye. Motions the receiver around as though for another jet sweep. Fake jet sweep, this time to, it looks like the fullback. If they did indeed have a fullback lined up there. So, I hope you're all enjoying my wonderful football commentary. If you're watching the game, you know what? You just turn off the sound. I'm going to turn off the sound here too in a second. And just let the melodious tones of Eric's voice carry you away into a football bonanza of glory. All right, here we are. It is 2nd and goal. Purdy in the shotgun from about the 10-yard line. Steps back into the pocket a step or two, then steps up and runs with it all the way to getting a touchdown. Nice job, Mr. Purdy. First name Brock. I hope you are enjoying yourself there in the end zone, celebrating with your teammates, talking to the fans, saying, I did that. That was me. Hooray for me. So good job for Purdy. You know, it was a good decision. He dropped back, took a couple steps back. I don't think it was a designed run. He looked like he was going to throw it in the flat, but the guy was covered. He took off, then he intelligently pump faked. He was at that point probably past the line of scrimmage, but the DB bit, and that opened up enough of a lane for him to get into the end zone. 6 points for San Francisco with the extra point on its way, and good. And that makes it a 21-13 game. The Detroit Lions are looking at one another with dismay, saying, I thought we had this game. I thought for sure this time we'd be the winners. Thanks, David Earl Bacher. Who do you think was the top 3 quarterbacks of all time? Ken Stabler? I would say the top 3 quarterbacks of all time are Joe Montana, Tom Brady, maybe Dan Marino. I'm going to throw in Dan Marino as somebody who didn't win a whole shit ton, but had a very pretty spiral, threw in a lot of nice balls, you know. Tom Brady, maybe not the biggest, prettiest arm, you know, but undeniably a winner. And Joe Montana, nice combination of everything, plus a winner. You could take either Steve Young or Joe Montana. I don't know. Terry Bradshaw. Quarterbacks didn't need to do as much back then, you know? And even the ones I name here, except for Tom Brady, like, I suspect the offense that Dan Marino was running was a little less complicated. And I suspect that than contemporary offenses. And I suspect that play calling in general was a little less sophisticated. And the quarterback probably had to run through fewer reads. They probably had fewer people on average out as eligible receivers. Back in the day, they didn't run much 5 wide, empty back set kind of stuff, empty backfield stuff. So I think the job of quarterback is more complicated now. In that regard, you probably should put Tom Brady at the top of that list. But I think of Dan Marino as being the guy with the best pure passer. Like drop a dime 60 yards downfield. All right, we're back to the game now. The commercial's over. The Lions have the ball. They're going to try to answer the touchdown just put up on the board by the 49ers. Goff hands the ball off, and that run play is blown up in the backfield. Number 26 goes in no place for the Detroit Lions. As not one but two 49ers converged upon him about a half second after the ball enters his hands. Although number 94 is primarily responsible for the tackle. Oh, it fell over. It fell. You fell. You fell over, and now I don't know what to think. Can I trust you? Can I trust you to stand there? Okay. The Lions have pretty big play there. Got about 17 yards on the play, I'd say. And they're delighted, obviously, with their own performance. Personally, I'm rooting for the Niners, so I'm not so thrilled with that. All right. And it was one of those little angles out of the backfield, looks like. One of these plays that goes like that. All right, Detroit with the ball approaching the 50-yard line at about 47. They're on 47. Ooh, he was about to get sacked. Number 16 was about to get sacked, Goff. And instead of getting sacked, he threw the ball at the feet of one of his players nearby. Almost looked like it was a backwards pass, though. And then the Niners were like, oh, I'll get on that ball. But instead, he was just trying to get rid of it in a safe way. And he did successfully. Just threw it into the ground at number 28's feet, making sure that nobody had a chance to get it. That's going to bring up a 2nd and 10. And Goff now up under center. He sends a man in motion, takes the snap, fakes the handoff, now throws to the back, coming out of the backfield. He's crossed the 50-yard line, falls forward another couple of yards, and is about 3.5 yards short of the first down. So good gain there on 2nd down. I think the Lions should be pretty pleased with that, bringing up a very makeable 3rd and 3. Oh, that guy's head got smashed. All right, now we're bringing up that 3rd and 3. Goff drops back to pass, and he hits his receiver in the flat out of the backfield or off the end, I'm not sure which. And he gets just enough to get the first down before being brought down by an angry 49ers defender. The Lions coach looks at his piece of paper, laminated paper with all the plays on it, sends something in. Goff in the shotgun. He points, watch out for that guy, he says. Take the snap. And he does. And he hands it off to the running back for a little running play up the middle. Some kind of dive, halfback dive, or perhaps maybe, I don't know what you call that play exactly. It didn't look like it was a counter. Just some straight ahead kind of run up the middle. Probably an ISO or a dive. All right. Now, the offensive line of the Detroit Lions approaches the line of scrimmage. The quarterback, Goff, up under center. They're in a big formation, 2nd and 2. They appear to be trying to get the first down on the ground, and they get the first down on the ground with the big formation running play off the left side or between the tackles. Picks up a good 5 yards. Skipper, I don't know if he was the fullback or what, but his name's Skipper, just like Gilligan's favorite guy, namely the Skipper. 1st and 10, up under center. Goff fakes the snap count and tries to get the Niners to jump, but they don't. Sends a man in motion, drops back to pass, quick out to the tight end, who's lined up where the tight end was lined up anyway originally. St. Brown, who's probably a receiver, actually 14. But he had lined up more or less where you expect the tight end to be and released that little route there. Was able to pick up a nice gain. 1st and 10. And the Lions show that they are not afraid to try to keep pace with the San Francisco 49ers. They look very confident on offense. And they don't look as though they're starting to panic or anything. It's only the second quarter. They're only down by 8 points. And we'll see what happens. We're off to commercials now. The first of which is for Paramount Plus. You get some shut-eye. All right. Sleep well. Good night. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. I'm currently using his neighbor's Wi-Fi from a home he is squatting in. Dr. Disaster, I'm not squatting in this home. Nor am I using my neighbor's Wi-Fi. I'm using my Wi-Fi. Not much is up. Just watching an Old Navy commercial. Looking at Snoop Dogg making a commercial with Patrick Mahomes. Like, Snoop Dogg, just get off the TV already. You're in every commercial. You're everywhere all the time. Can you just chill out a little bit? That man will advertise anything. If I asked Snoop Dogg, will you advertise this chapstick? He'd say, if you pay my amount of money, of course I'll advertise it. What if I tell you it's not good chapstick? And you'd be like, I don't care. It's fine chapstick, though, by the way. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not chapstick brand chapstick, maybe. But it still addresses chapping. If you're not a huge fan of chapping. So I think I'm just going to can. Oh, it's halftime. 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 It's not halftime yet. It's going to be halftime soon. You know what I say about halftime. Halftime's from halftime. All right. Here we are. Flying in on a drone or something through the parking lot into the Niners Stadium. And over the concourse. And over the stands. I guess the TV got allowed to fly a drone. I'm not sure it's going over the people and everything. I don't know how else they would get that shot. All right, back to the game. Goff under center takes the snap, hands it off to the up man, fakes the handoff on the fake reverse. And that's a strange play. You normally fake the thing before you hand it off. You don't hand it off and then fake the thing. You got to be very sneaky about that initial handoff if you want that to work. But that wasn't that sneaky. I don't know about that play design there. It's an odd one. Didn't work very well, but it got a yard or two, I guess. D. Winters, linebacker. All right, now the snap fakes the pitch, and then throws to the flat, where his receiver is able to squeak out about 3 or 4 yards. 5 yards looks like maybe. Well, it's 3rd and 5 anyway. Find out how their non-alcoholic beer went from being made in garage to facilities producing millions of cans each year, making them one of CNS risk traders of 2024. Oh, Athletic, yeah, it's good. I have some in the fridge right now, in fact. Interesting. Well, I'm going to continue this stream till halftime, which point I'm going to shut it down and maybe have a shower, maybe play a game of football during halftime. I'm not sure. But right now, we're in the last 1 minute, 18 seconds of the second quarter. My name is Eric. I am your commentator for tonight's Monday Night Football game. It's possible for you to watch this game on ESPN or on ABC. But if you want this fine commentary, you'll need to have this audio tuned concurrent. Hopefully, you can get it to match up with the game exactly. There'll probably be a little bit of a delay on this commentary, so you might want to go a little bit back into the past of the game. All right, so anyway, Goff in the shotgun. Now, 4th and 3, they're going to go for it. They're from the Niners' 8-yard line. Drops back to pass, has time, throws the ball to a receiver who was kind of openish, and the pass is incomplete. The Niners defense holds, and the Niners will take over on offense from their own 8-yard line with 1 minute and 13 seconds left. We'll see how aggressive they want to get here. They may be content to run a couple of running plays and go into halftime with the lead, or they may try to pop something deep and enter halftime with a bit more robust of an advantage. Regardless, we've gone to commercials again. This Asian lady is looking for something in the fridge. There, Factor. It's like frozen food, but it goes in your fridge. Oh, I'm going to eat this. It's delicious. That's what they're saying in the commercial. Now she's looking at it, and she's got a fork and a plate, and she tastes it, and she's just, oh my God, this is delicious. And the reason is because she got it from Factor. Now, we're transitioning to another commercial. This time, it's a dog food commercial. What kind of dog food are you going to feed your dog? Fresh Pet. And there was the one gangster who didn't approve, thought it was like sissy, and they threw him in the trunk of a car, presumably because they had killed him. I don't know. Maybe they just knocked him out. Using the Vulcan knockout pinch, which knocks anybody out in a single pinch. Fortnite commercial over. We are now entering into a new commercial. This time it is for some kind of ticket service, I think. Maybe it's for ESPN app. Yeah, I think it's for the ESPN app. You can watch football on your phone. Hooray! My team is winning. You can watch tennis, ladies MMA. All of these things, thanks to ESPN. All right. Now we've got Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Monday Night Football. It's a battle between the two teams who played in the 2023 NFC Championship game. Game which the 49ers came back to take the lead 27-24 and then ended up winning that game, I guess. They did, but they didn't say it there, but as I recall, the Niners won a Super Bowl last year. Brock Purdy drops back into the pocket. Doesn't see anybody open. He's got people chasing him down the field. He's forced to just throw it away off to the Niners sideline or risk taking a safety, which I'm sure he did not want. Now, probably, the Niners are thinking, maybe we should slow our roll here. Maybe we should run the ball, let some clock run, because we are pinned deep in our own end zone. If we have a quick 3-and-out here and no time elapses, we'll have to punt the Lions. They may still pull off some points in this half. The Lions obviously should have kicked the field goal, but like everybody these days, they want to always go for it, go for it, go for it. Take the 3 points, says this old man. Brock Purdy in the shotgun takes the snap. He drifts back a couple of steps in the pocket, then steps forward and hurls the ball down the field where his receiver 31 is waiting, arms open, to catch the ball before being dragged to the ground. He doesn't get out of bounds. The clock is still running. 45 seconds remain. The Niners have 1 timeout. The Lions, meanwhile, have 3, but it's no longer looking as though it will be in their interest to stop the clock and try to get the ball back. Blitz almost gets home to Purdy, but he escapes it and drops the ball off to 31 again, this time as the outlet receiver who gets out of bounds, stopping the clock close to the first down. That allows us to pause for a second, catch our breath, reset our commentary bones. And we are looking at a happy, fist-pumping coach on the sidelines of the 49ers. That was running back Isaac Guerrero, that number 31, who caught those last 2 passes. And obviously a reliable safety choice for Purdy. Purdy drops back in the shotgun. He throws now to number 14, Pearsall. And Pearsall picks up the first down and gets out of bounds, stopping the clock. 28 seconds left. That's going to bring up a 1st and 10. For Ricky Pearsall, it's his 4th reception of the night, totaling 63 yards. He's got 1 touchdown. As the Niners huddle up, he's catching his breath. He's saying, I've been doing some running. I'm breathing a little bit hard, but I'm ready to run again. I'm ready to catch another ball. And he lines up at the line of scrimmage. Purdy in the shotgun, 1 running back in the backfield. He drops back, takes 1 or 2 steps back into the pocket, and then unleashes to number 15 on the other side of the field, the right side of the field. They had been working the left side of the field. He fumbles it out of bounds, and that's going to stop the clock. And there are 20. No, it does not stop the clock. Now he clocks it, and that stops the clock. Bringing up a 3rd and 2 from the 32-yard line of the Detroit Lions. In my mind, they're already in field goal range. So if I were the Niners, I would probably just run a quick play here to get it in the middle of the field and let the clock run down to just a couple of seconds, call timeout and kick the field goal. I wouldn't bother getting greedy here. Pushing for a touchdown in situations like this where you're against the clock is a recipe for throwing a pick. Brock Purdy stands in the pocket. He unleashes it to Kittle across the middle, who's coming across the middle on some kind of a drag route. And Kittle gets all the way to the 5-yard line. He does not get out of bounds. There's a flag on the play. The clock is stopped because of the flag. And it looks like it's holding on the Niners. So that one's going to come back and more, maybe pushing them out of field goal range even. Hi there, Sam Gloves. And hello, Rubinar. I like to stay and watch the live stream if people wear disposable gloves. Well, I'm not wearing any disposable gloves, no. But I am watching football. So it's a pick is actually what it was called. The receiver number 19 threw a pick out there, which allowed Kittle to get free on the drag route. Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. That's a big penalty. That's gonna, as I said, I think push the Niners out of field goal range. They've got 11 seconds left. They're now on the 40-yard line, so you're looking at a 50-plus yard field goal. They're not necessarily out of field goal range, but all right, Kittle again. This time he does get out of bounds with 7 seconds left, and it's bringing up 4th down, but a little bit more of a makeable field goal. I'm assuming that the Niners will send the field goal team out onto the field, and they do. Mr. Moody is going to kick the field goal, and he's standing where he's going to kick it. He's going to take a few steps back, 1, 2, 3, to line himself up just right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then going to take 1, 2 steps to his left. And now we're going to get ready for it. The snap comes. The hold is good. The kick is up. The kick is to the left. It's no good. Wide left on the 51-yard attempt. So the Niners tried to do the right thing. They tried to kick the field goal. But instead of succeeding, the field goal kicker missed it wide right. I know I said left, but I was looking from the other angle for it. Somebody needs to take you behind the old shed. Well, if somebody were to take me behind the old shed, presumably it would be because they were purposely seeking out the whooping I would give them. Hi, Slick. You're halfway strong through the Bacardi bottle, huh? Sometimes people are willing to step up, be accountable, and say, okay, Eric, take me behind the shed. I deserve it. But usually they put up a fuss and a fight about it, you know. They don't like being taken behind the shed. Well, what about you, Eric? Don't you ever get taken behind the shed? I take myself behind the shed. I don't need any shed takers. Most people do. Most people aren't that accountable, but I don't need anybody to take me behind the shed. I take myself behind the shed way too often already. It's like behind the shed is nothing but my own caked blood from self-flagellation. Can you get in my cheeks? No, you can't. You cannot get in my cheeks for obvious reasons. Sam Gloves loves gloves. Why are there moisture droplets flying from your gloved hands? Good question. Hello, 966. I am your mother. Fred is behind the shed. Well, to be honest, there's really nothing behind the shed. Just some bushes and stuff. All right, let's go smoke a cigarette. Drink this kombucha. And then we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll wrap it up. Maybe we won't. It depends. Depends on a lot of different things. Hot Stepper 666. You and my cheeks will never. You don't need to delete that. That's fine, but you and my cheeks will never meet. Believe me. Never shall you get between them. Ne'er shall you get between my lovely cheeks. Because my cheeks are as tender and as smooth and as fluffy as a Georgia peach. That's why my nickname in high school was Fluffy Cheeks. I got 2 butt cheeks, but just one hole. 2 butt cheeks, but just one hole. And no, I don't want you to go up in there at all. Well, thanks, Hot Stepper 666. And Rahul Viewer, I see you are here as well. My Giants, SMH. They can't even fuck up right. What's this about fluffy cheeks? We're talking about my ass cheeks, 966. How they were voted world's most beautiful ass cheeks 6 years in a row. From 2020 through 2026. They voted up winners in advance for 2025 and 2026. When you poll the average American with a simple question, what's your favorite 2 things? Most people answer Eric's ass cheeks. America's greatest treasure. Eric's ass cheeks, also called America's greatest treasure, first came on the scene in 1971 as a newborn Post-Eric, fresh from the womb. Commended the doctor on a passable job. Hopped in a taxi outside the hospital. Traveled to Arizona, rented a horse, and jumped over the Grand Canyon. Several different Erics are being referenced. Well, I am so many different men all at the same time. I am a hero. I'm also a saint. I'm a lover. I'm also a warrior. I'm a musical genius, and I'm also a photo perfect portrait painter. I'm the world's greatest sweeper of leaves, but I can also rake well. No, people are referring to Eric Clapton when they're talking about ass cheeks. It's obviously mine. Eric Clapton. There's only two things people think of when they think of Eric Clapton: shitty music and a dead kid. Too soon? You have an aim in 2025 to learn the English well? Well, good for you. Glad you have a goal. That meme kid from the early internet emotion, Eric. Eric Bischoff. I don't know who Eric Bischoff is. I just say karate out loud a couple times a day for absolutely no reason. Does that mean I'm on some kind of spectrum? No, it doesn't. It just means you have pseudo Tourette's. I also have pseudo Tourette's. It's not like real Tourette's, but I do say things out loud frequently throughout the day. Often negative self-talk. Not something as pleasant as karate. Although sometimes I'll make certain sounds. The other day, lately I've been interested in talking in assorted syllables talk. Mm-hmm.
I love you.
I love you too. Is my one example of talking in syllables. For garanti, for latatium. These are my pronunciations of a dead language that nobody knows how to speak and that no one knows what it means. Do you declare your attack move before throwing a punch like an anime character? Yeah, for sure. So like if I get into a fight, it's always like front punch, karate chop, eye poke, noogie. That's how I do it. But it could just be me, I'm not saying that's the only way to fight. It's just my way of fighting. Pseudo Tourette's. Well, like I throughout the day say things like I hate myself, I hate myself, I hate myself. Like last night I was driving home and I was trying to stop doing that and I got in this loop of I hate stop. Eric, stop it. Induces your cringe with the opponent with debilitating cringe, huh? Yeah, that's true. I could say swinging fist kick. A swinging fist kick is just a particularly unuseful form of punch. I was trying to stop myself from saying I hate myself, so I'd say I hate stop. Stop it, Eric. I don't really listen to myself very well when I'm in that kind of loop or something. I don't know. I just think, like, how horrible that I have to live in a world where all of my previous failures are on my permanent record. I call myself dumbass all the time. You usually go with the classic fuck me, fuck me, fuck me, fuck. I've been going with also fuck me in the ass and call me Tuesday. That's one I've been saying. Well, fuck me in the ass and call me Tuesday. Also, shoot me in the head, shoot me in the face, those kind of things. You're too dissociated to hate yourself. Good flavor says, finally, my people, are you also engaged in self-loathing pseudo Tourette's? I am quite commonly eviscerating myself with various insults. Usually telling myself how dumb I am, how stupid, retarded, and inadequate in executing things, like lazy, what a big failure I am, all that stuff. Then I switch to fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. What the fuck, you fucking idiot? What the fuck were you thinking? Fuck you. Fair enough. I like that. Do we have any go-to road rage sayings? I go with fucktard usually is my standard, I think. What is your relationship or the standard relationship with previous failures? I mean, it well, I mean, historically it's kind of dependent on the nature of the failure. I'm particularly like, shame shivers about certain kinds of FE failures. Maybe they're very old, but then I'm more self-hating about failures of FI, instances where I should have cared more about somebody and didn't, or hurt someone's feelings or something like that. What are my thoughts on Franz Kafka? Well, I think I want to use the word Kafkaesque to describe medicine, contemporary medicine. My thoughts on his actual writing is it was just kind of like fine. Kind of seems kind of juvenile a little bit to me. I don't know. But I haven't read a whole bunch of his shit, and he was talking about the nightmare of things not making sense. What about Sigmund Freud? I mean, I think Freud was kind of ridiculous. He wanted to make everything about sex, but it's not. He wanted things to be neat and tidy in his little organization of things, but it's just not how shit works ultimately. I don't think that history has validated his notions very much. I think history has validated some of Jung's notions a lot better. But other things Jung said were just metaphor. Am I the only one who is still trying to consistently use all white bed linen? I don't think we have white sheets on the bed. I'm not sure what color they are now that you ask, now that you mention it. Your mom is so ugly that the world faked a pandemic just to make her wear a mask. Now that's ugly. Even though I don't agree, I'm happy I found you, not gonna lie. You don't agree with what? About Franz Kafka? I mean, I don't have a strong opinion about it. It's been a long time since I've read him. He might be better than I recall. If regarding Freud, well, I mean, there may be some elements of truth to what he's saying, I guess, but I don't know. I don't feel as though Freud really explained anything, He made some observations, coined some terms, but he didn't meaningfully explain how things work in a way that's, testable and verifiable, in my opinion. Ruben doesn't see color. That's right. I don't see shape. I look at something, I have no idea what shape it is. I can tell you what color it is, but I recognize people because I recognize their voices. Schopenhauer. I'm a bit of a dark philosopher. I'm remembering correctly, Schopenhauer's who we used in debate to impact turn human extinction. Human extinction good. So if you're if you're a philosopher that I can use in debate to run an impact turn on depopulation, then you're probably you definitely have gotten some things wrong, right? But I'm a former debate coach, and I understand all these people in terms of how their various positions and arguments are used in a debate round. So it's I kind of have a different perspective on it than other people. If you could make up a word and have it immediately adopted and taught, what would the word be for? Well, I mean, I've already made up a word that I think should be taught, which is intuitard, which explains how, because there's this reality in the world where people who are, especially NTPs, are told by others how smart or talented they are, but others don't get why they have trouble being productive or something. There's a failure to understand that the more intuitive and engaged in meaning you are, the more you're going to struggle with the practicalities of the sensory world. Who's my favorite writer? I like a writer named, and if you like absurdism stuff, I think you probably like him too. He wrote under the name Saki, Saki, but his name's H. Munro. He wrote a bunch of short stories. I think he's probably my favorite writer. He's he does a lot in a little bit of space, He's great. But if you go back a little further than that, I'm fond of Sherwood Anderson, who's another basically a short story writer. I like F. Scott Fitzgerald's work generally. You do not, money. You don't like Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle. That's silly. You're lying. Okay. The cook was a good cook as cooks go, and as cooks go, she went. Saki's great. He's unbelievable. He writes some of the best sentences ever. If you look at the beginning of Sredni Vashtar, which is one of his more famous stories, it's so dense. It's so incredibly dense and so beautifully written at the same time. And I hate usually needlessly wordy stuff, but H. Munro is a genius. Lovecraft, huh? I've never read anything by him. I know he writes about Cthulhu, right? Like tied up with the Aleister Crowley people. Maybe trouble? You better leave your sister alone. Leave her alone. You're a bad boy. That kitty's a real bad boy, let me tell you. Fellow alcoholics, rejoice, says Sean. It's time for moist karate. I hate posterity. It's so fond of having the last word. What a great line, right? What a great line. Well, Treble's trying to bully his sister. Trying to be like, oh, you want to go in the kitchen? I'm going to sneak up on you and try to scratch you or something. I've seen the dark universe yawning where the black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or lesser a name. Well, that's good meter, Most people who write poetry kind of stuff, they don't do meter well. But I have seen the dark universe yawning, where the black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or lesser or a name. That's good meter. It's good verse. Hello, Argentina. Don't cry for me. It's fine. I'm fine. You don't need to cry for me. Everything's going well. If you're going to cry for somebody else. Hey, bro, please tell the worst mistake, offensive joke you remember. I'd like to steal it, tell it at work, and give you 0 credit. Well, let's see. I don't really tell a lot of offensive jokes. I mean, some people might be offended by them, but they're wrong. I mean, you could always tell my Helen Keller joke. What do you call Helen Keller juggling 6 dead babies? Impressive. Or if you wanted to get racy and invoke race, you could tell this, which isn't really a joke, but it was a joke I made off of low-hanging fruit at one point. So I went with my friend to go axe throwing this past weekend. And it was there that I learned that a lot of people in the Black community call it ask throwing. I don't know if that's offensive or not, but it does involve the controversial topic of race. Or how about this one? So one day these 2 firefighters were butt fucking in the back of the fire station. When one of the other firefighters comes in and says, "Hey, you guys are being so gay." Then all the firefighters started butt fucking. The end. Is that offensive? Offensive to firefighters? Rachel was telling me, she's watching this show, and she was telling me that there was a guy who was on the show, who was a straight guy, and it's like a looking for love kind of show, you know? And what he didn't inform the lady that he ended up getting with about was the fact that he informed her that he had been like a sperm donor to some lesbian friends of his for a baby, to help them make a baby. What he didn't tell the lady was that he'd actually, the way they had chosen to impregnate the lesbian was for him to have sex with her. Which seems very strange. And that he's still involved in the kid's life and everything. So, I don't know. I would assume that most lesbians who want to have a baby, one of the lesbian partners doesn't have sex with a man in order to make that happen. Like, there's got to be easier ways to do that. You just shoot it in a cup and turkey baster it up there. You know, there's no reason to have sexual intercourse. Makes me wonder what any of those people were thinking. Like, that's a terrible idea. Like, can you imagine a straight couple if the man didn't have adequate sperm count, that they find a guy whose sperm they want and they have that guy have sex with the woman? No, that would never happen. Unless the guy was like already a cock or something, I guess. But I once told a funny joke about babies. I forget what it was though. Why did the baby cross the road? Because it had terrible parents. If only Africa had more mosquito nets, then every year we could save millions of mosquitoes from dying needlessly of AIDS. Hilarious. Great joke. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks a lot for being here. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.